All right, I'm going to call to order the July 11th, 2024 meeting of the Fairfax County Architectural Review Board. To kick off this meeting, we have to do a few administrative motions, so I'd ask everyone's patience on that. First of all, after calling to order, we need to do a vote of audibility for our remote member participants. Right now, it appears we only have one of those remote members. If the other one joins, we'll take another second vote on to see if we can hear that member. All right. Board member Murray, can you please? Oh, Kay's on. Oh, fantastic. Kay, can you hear us?
She said yes.
She said yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, let's try this again. Now we got Kay on. All right. Board member Murray, can you please state for the record your location and reason for participating remotely?
I am located in Ocean City, New Jersey, in my family's house that's 100 years old and is in a local and a national register district, and I am serving as a caretaker for my mother.
All right. Board member Kay, can you please, for the record, state your location and the reason you're participating remotely? You have to unmute yourself. We cannot hear you at the time, Kay.
Okay, let's try that. How about
there
that?
There we go. All right,
Kay
board member Orr.
Kay Orr, I am down in Venice, Florida. Have brought my sister to be with my sister who has cancer to be with my 96-year-old dad. So there's like all kinds of yes.
Thank you, board member Orr. All right, Mr. Vice Chair, I would welcome a motion.
Sure, Mr. Chairman, I move that board members Orr and Murray can be clearly heard and that their remote participation comports with the policy.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Burns. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. All right, public comment time limitations. The ARB needs to determine how long each member of the public will be able to speak during public comment periods. The public will be allowed to comment after consent agenda items and after each action item, as is ARB standard practice. For a motion to set that time period. Mr. Plumpy.
Oh, I'd like to make motions to set the time period for public comment time limitation.
For how many minutes?
For 3 minutes.
3 minutes. All right. Is there a second? Second by Ms. Magnum. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any abstentions? Nope. All right. Motion carries. All right. We got through that. All right. Just want to let everyone know that this meeting is being recorded and that the recording will be posted online in roughly about 10 days. It can also be found online on the Fairfax County YouTube channel eventually if you wish to enjoy seeing yourself. To begin our meetings, we always start with the reading of Statement of Purpose and Intent of Historic Overlay Districts. Mr. Zellman has offered to do so.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Historic overlay districts are created for the purpose of promoting the general welfare, education, economic prosperity, and recreational pleasure of the public through the perpetuation of those general areas or individual structures and premises that have been officially designated by the Board of Supervisors as having historical, cultural, architectural, or archaeological significance. Regulations within such districts are intended to protect against destruction of or encroachment upon such areas, structures, and premises, to encourage uses which will lead to their continuance, conservation, and improvement in the manner appropriate to the preservation of the cultural, social, economic, political, architectural, or archaeological heritage of the county, to prevent creation of environmental influences adverse to such purposes, and to ensure that new structures and uses within such districts will be keeping with the character to be preserved and enhanced.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Zellman. All right. The next on our agenda is to approve the agenda. We have a rather packed full agenda with 2 consent calendar items, 5 items for action, 2 workshops, and a presentation. Unless there are any revisions, I would accept a motion to approve the agenda as presented. Ms. Mangum.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the ARB approve the agenda for the July 11th, 2024 ARB meeting.
Is there a second? Second by Mr. Zellman. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, the motion carries. We have our agenda set. I just want to remind applicants, for those that are not on the consent calendar, those that have presentations, please limit your presentation time to 8 minutes for a first submission. And if you are here for a resubmission, please attempt to limit it to 3 minutes. By that, I mean the presentation you would actually give to the board, not the time in which you discuss the application. All right, Daniel, are there any introductions or guests that we need to recognize at this point in time? All right, we have 2 items on the consent calendar. We can take them both individually, but before we take a vote on them, I need to ask before each of them if there is any member of the public that has any comments on consent calendar item 1, which is ARB 24 PHC 01 7412 Pohick Road Solar. Seeing no public comments on that one, this is consent calendar, so I would entertain a motion on this item or discussion, if that's what's wanted. Mr. Plumpy.
Sure. Mr. Chairman, I move that the ARB approve consent item ARB 24 PHC 01 located at 7412 Quebec Road, Lorton, tax map 1081 040103 in the Pohick Church HOD for the proposed installation of roof-mounted solar panels as submitted and presented at the July 11, 2024 ARB meeting. Upon review of the meeting, upon review of the materials, the proposal is found to meet the requirements of zoning ordinance 3101 historic overlay districts.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Mangum. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Mr. Burns is abstaining. All right. Motion carries. All right. Our next item for consent is ARB 24 LOR 11 8403 Snapdragon Road Solar. This is another solar application located in the Laurel Hill Lorton MOA eligible district. Again, just like the last one, I'm looking if there's any member of the public that wishes to comment on this item. Not seeing any. All right. I would take up this item since it's consent for an action. Mr. Zellman.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the ARB approve consent item ARB 24 LOR 11 located at 8403 Snapdragon Road, Lorton, tax map 1071070151 in the Lorton Laurel Hill MOA eligible district for the proposed installation of roof-mounted solar panels is submitted and presented at the July 11, 2024 ARB meeting. Upon review of the materials, the proposal is found to meet the requirements of the memorandum of agreement of the Lorton Laurel Hill eligible district in zoning ordinance 3101 historic overlay districts.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Plumpy. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstentions? Mr. Byrne is abstaining. Oh, and Ms. Fawn is abstaining. That brings us to, yes, enough to pass. The motion carries. All right. That takes us out of our items for consent and brings us into our items for action. All items for action are located in the Holland Hills Historic Overlay District. So, Board Member Burns, I know you have a statement you need to read.
It's monthly tonight. I, John Burns, under Virginia Code Section 2.2-3112B1 and 2.2-3115H, declare my personal interest in transactions brought before the Architectural Review Board involving the Holland Hills HOD, and specifically state the following for the July 11th, 2024 meeting. All of the remaining action and workshop items, including ARB 24 HOL 20 1820 Drury Lane site plan, ARB 24 HOL 19 1820 Drury Lane addition, ARB 24 HOL 16 2200 Glasgow Road solar panels, ARB 24 HOL 17 2205 Martha's Road solar panels, ARB 24 HOL 18 7218 Beechwood Road addition, and workshop items ARB 24 HOL 15 WS 2208 Martha's Road addition, and ARB 24 HOL 21 WS 2107 Hopkins Lane addition involve the Holland Hills Historic Overlay District. 2, the nature of my personal interest is that I own and reside in a home that is valued at over $5,000 and is located in the Holland Hills HOD. I am a member of a group of 3 or more persons who are members of which are affected by the transaction, and I am able to participate in the transactions fairly, objectively, and in the public interest. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, Mr. Burns. Just so for board member awareness, since we are operating with 2 members remote, and it should help to manage any comments or questions following presentations, I'm going to ask if board members Orr and Murray, if you would just make sure to raise your hands using the hand tool to indicate to Daniel and our recording secretary team that you have a question, just so I don't miss you all. If you have a question, I want to make sure that if you have one, I get to make sure I get to you both. And it's from our angle here, I can't see that unless I look up and see your faces and see you scowling at me. In addition to that, we're also going to do roll call votes because it's just going to be much easier to ask around the room for votes, just to make sure we can track votes one way or another. All right. With those minor items out of the way, our first item for action is ARB 24 HOL 20. 1820 Drury Lane site plan. This is a project located in the Holland Hills Historic Overlay District. The applicant is promoting land disturbance for construction of additions to the residence, landscaping, and installation of pathways, terracing the seating area. I'll just remind members that the second application is for the actual addition itself. So as we do normally, we'll focus on the first one, and then we can talk about the second one after that, after we take a vote on it. All right, and the application is being represented by Miss Rebecca Bostic. Yes. Ma'am, the floor is yours.
Okay. So we came to you a couple months ago in a workshop to present this project. And after we presented it, realized we are well over our 2,500 square feet of disturbed area. So we now are presenting the site plan. It does have grading, it does have drainage, and the existing house is in the very pale blue that you can see, and our addition is in the darker blue on the right side of the house. The lot does have a pretty decent slope from the driveway, which is off the circle, down to the rear corner, kind of upper corner on the piece of paper. And I don't really have much else to say about the site plan per se, other than there it is.
Okay.
I will tell you, landscaping, were we putting landscaping in this one?
Yes, landscaping is part of the site.
We did submit the landscaping plan, and I don't know if that's the next slide. No, one more. Oh, I did the pictures and then I did the landscape. But that kind of runs you through our slope and the landscaping. While we don't have a formal plan to present, the owner would really rather get the addition built and figure out just what we can keep. It is a pretty well landscaped lot now, and we will go back and supplement it based on what there's room for once we finish the additions. And we've kind of given you a couple ideas of where we have the construction area that will be coming in from the existing driveway. There's a little stone wall, not really a retaining wall, just a stone wall around the driveway that will come down. And they'll be accessing along the sort of top angled part of the site. And everything from the house downward is existing to remain. The contractor won't be given access to that part of the site. So once they finish and start backing out of the site, the bottom part is going to be the lowest part where the drainage will be coming out, and that will be more rain garden plants. The center part will be sort of terraced paths to get us down the hill of the site, and the upper area will be sort of just restoring the garden, restoring the stone wall around the driveway, and repairing all the construction damage. I think that's really all for the site.
Thank you for that clarification. So I'll go to any, before I do that, I'm going to ask if any member of the public has a comment on this item. No members of the public. Now we would go to members. Remember, this is just the site plan right now. We obviously will take up the addition as well. So if there are any members, Ms. Mangum.
Hi, archaeologist on the board. So the key question here, I guess, relates to the design guideline requirement that anything over 2,500 square feet is suggested to go for review before the Fairfax County Park Authority archaeology branch. Have you already submitted the site plan to them for review, or have they been involved at all?
I'd have to ask the civil engineer about that, but my answer is probably not.
Okay. I guess I will just check with our staff liaison to make sure is that something that could be required as a modification if we were considering approving the site plan, or does it need to happen and then come back?
Just 1 second.
And in this instance, since we're recommending approval, I mean, obviously we can still place modifications, but it'd be,
The requirement in the zoning ordinance is only for a zoning application.
Okay,
So it does meet over the 2,500 square feet, but it's not a zoning application, so it's not required.
so it's a recommendation.
It's a recommendation to do so.
Okay,
In past consultation with ACB, they generally do not think that there is high probability in Holland Hills because of how heavily disturbed.
okay. And that's why because this is such a significant area, I still might just suggest the outreach to them, and then you could simply get something that's easy in an email response, possibly from an ACB staff member that just says don't. And there's other factors here too, prior construction, but also you mentioned a steep slope, so other factors that might limit the potential for archaeology, but I still just would rather just check if you can, and I think that's a fairly simple email that.
I can forward what I have to them
Okay,
tomorrow.
okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Can I clear, you said that's through the Park Authority?
It's they're an office within the Fairfax County Park Authority called the Archaeology and Collections Branch.
And you're going to, it's not something I need to do, you're gonna.
Yeah, I'll coordinate. Yep.
but it sounds like we might make it a modification to the approval, but something that Daniel will then do for you, which doesn't happen very often. It's pretty nice. Any,
Well, I guess just in general, I don't think I was on the board when this was at a workshop, but I might have missed that meeting. I just wanted to see whether any, were there comments or recommendations to try to limit the amount of ground disturbance? Are there reasons? I understand, I think the rain garden is about 2,100 square feet, so that's probably the bulk of it, but just were there measures to try to, I guess, limit the extent of disturbance and also, any damage to mature vegetation, things like that. So I'm sure you thought about it. I wasn't here to hear the answer. So
We have some things can be moved, and the owner's planning to move what we can.
okay,
And the rest, some things are just kind of past their lifespan anyways. We're having a lot of trees fall in the Holland Hills neighborhood, so a couple things were good just to bring them down now. But yeah, we will restore it all. And most of the rain garden appears large because of the storm drainage. If you flip back to the site plan, the civil engineer is proposing a sort of a detention center, if you will, from all of the downspouts that tie in back there. And so I just sort of circled that end of the site while we figure out just how big that becomes on the property.
okay,
And the pathways down will all be permeable. So, and with the idea that we'll be creating berms to slow and absorb any water that goes down.
no further question.
Mr. Plumpy, I'm certain you had some questions.
A couple things on the rain garden. Is it a true rain garden? I'm a landscape architect, and it looks like it's underground storage pipes, 30 inches in diameter with overflow structures and so forth. So I don't know what amount of coverage you have over the pipes. Looking at it, it's not a true rain garden, meaning that's a depressed area where they put in soils that absorb the rain and so forth and filter out and permeate into the soil as opposed to catch and flow. So maybe we could just call it detention area versus rain garden. I think your planting list is fine as long as your gardener or landscape contractor or whoever does the final plan, make sure that the sun exposure, because this is going to be full sun and some of your plants are actually shade tolerant. More shade.
It's in full,
Cassandra and the ginger.
it's full shade.
Well, you're doing a total regrading of everything, right?
Yeah.
So therefore it's going to expose that to light and sunlight. So I'd take a look at your plant list.
Sure.
So I would say I have no problem in the general concept of using native plant control, that's the idea, which is great. I'm glad you did it, or non-invasive, but I think your plant list should be studied. And, even if you plant new trees, then there's going to take time for shade to recuperate that you're taking down right now. So I would, I have no problem with the plan, but I'll probably have a comment to the motion that will, to review the plant list for real sun exposures and so forth. But other than that, I think it's fine. I don't see any paths yet. I guess, is that on the next plan, all the pathways and everything are shown?
We haven't really developed the paths yet because we're kind of waiting to see how it
goes as you
develops,
prepare.
the house is in place and what trees we can save and not save.
Got it. So do they come back again with that plan, or is this?
If we recommend this site plan, then no, unless it required a building
Okay,
permit.
no, I'm fine. It's out of sight, out of mind. I have one final question. Will this be the largest house in Holland Hills when it's done?
I don't think so.
Okay, there's a lot of additions. So, and you got a big house to begin with. Not as big as Mr. Burns, I'm sure. Can't say anything. Can't say.
Will be a multi-family dwelling. I mean, not multi-generational.
Okay, that's good. I was gonna say multifamily, then you got land use.
A multi, yeah, we're.
Thank you. Okay, that's all my questions. Thank you.
Okay. Daniel, I just wanted to check, did we have any comments from our, okay, just want to be certain. Mr. Burns, you had your hand up, I think.
Yes, you have in the packet of information views from the park, photographs of the park.
Oh, yes.
Can you put those up on the screen?
If you just click through one at a time, I'll just kind of walk. So go slower. Sorry. So that's as we're heading down the hill that's looking at where the addition will
And
be.
that tree in the center there, that is a sacrificial tree for the addition.
You mean the holly?
Yeah.
We're gonna try, we've arranged to have,
I'm gonna give it a
come
shot.
out and have,
Cool.
there's several trees there that I really want to save, so it's
Good.
So this is looking from the back corner of the house to where the addition will be. One more. That's starting to look back up the hill where the addition will be. That's looking from the back corner, kind of where I said the rain garden was, looking back towards the house, towards the addition. I think this next one, that puts you from the park. So you could see the red umbrella that was on the pool deck. That's about how you can see through the park.
Is this different from the one we were sent?
It's possible because these were done yesterday. And the Bogue family has removed a lot of bamboo in that area. And so, yeah, my pictures these may be a little bit.
The photos I'm referring to are the very last photo in the set that we were sent. Is that accessible, Daniel?
Let's see.
Yeah, you're talking from the ones that obviously are from a different season, it looks like, too.
Right. They were from more winter season, trying to look through the. Drawings are the same from our submittal, but the pictures were updated.
If and when we can find it, what I was going to ask you to do is point out the property line between the park and your property. So we get an extent of mature trees that will be undisturbed because they're on the parkland versus the ones that are on the other side that might be disturbed for the creation of the rain garden.
So pretty much.
This is the only one we got. Can you show me on this one?
Yeah, so pretty much all of this is park and you can just barely see a fence line back here.
Chain link fence.
That's the back of their property.
Okay, that satisfies my question.
Everything this
Thank
way
you.
is parkland.
What was it, Mr. Burns?
It satisfies my question.
Okay. All right, and there were no comments or questions from our remote members. I didn't have any comments or questions at this point either. I kind of agreed though with Mr. Plumpy about, and then he was bringing up about shade and just, it does look like you're getting a lot of change. I would definitely focus on that list of seeing what, because unfortunately construction work, as much as we try to protect everything we can, and this board tries a lot to do tree saves, it's just all the shock that happens to them. So the more that list is, and particularly if you're just going to react to the results of construction, I think that would be really helpful to kind of reassess it following that.
Develop that list, it was based upon the fact that it's really shady now. I did not anticipate that. I guess, of course, I wouldn't
Change,
plant something that would
eventually shade.
burn up.
All right, well, I would,
Hibiscus.
at this point, we have one item for recommendation, and then we would go to the next item, the modification. So I would look right now if there's a member which take up a motion. Mr. Plumpy?
Got you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Chairman, I move that the ARB recommend approval of action item ARB 24 HOL 20 located at 1820 Drury Lane, Alexandria, tax map 0933040024 in the Holland Hills HOD for the proposed land disturbance as submitted and presented at the July 11, 2024 ARB meeting. Upon review of the materials, the proposal was found to meet requirements of zoning ordinance 3101 historic district overlays. However, I would like to add that the applicant reviews the proposed plant material to respect the proposed conditions of sunlight versus shade and do the best that they can say for existing trees.
There was one other item, if you could add that to yours, which was a request by Ms. Mangum.
Oh, yeah, and that the applicant reviews the site with the appropriate county archaeological agencies.
All right. We have a motion. Is there a second? Seconded by Ms. Mangum. Is there any need for a friendly amendment, Ms. Mangum? Or
I
is
think
that
that's sufficient.
Okay.
Thank you.
is that sufficient to staff? All right. We have a motion. We have a second. We're going to do roll call votes. Mr. Zellman, if you'll be my tracker as well. So Board Member Burns. Aye. Board Member Plumpy.
Aye.
Mr. Zellman.
Aye.
Mr. Daniels, aye. Ms. Mangum.
Aye.
Swan.
Aye.
All right. Ms. Orr.
Aye.
Double aye. And Ms. Murray.
Abstain.
Ms. Murray abstains. All right. Motion carries. So for the recommendation, that takes us on to the second item and related to this application. This is ARB 24 HOL 19, the actual addition at 1820 Drury Lane. Same applicant, Ms. Rebecca Bostic, represents the application. So Ms. Bostic, do you want to walk through the revisions and changes that happened to the design itself?
Yeah, since we met with you in the workshop, we haven't really made a lot of revisions to the building. The building still steps down the hill with the grade. The one real kind of surprise was we used to have a door on the side. Side, right here. Right there. Because I originally thought it would be on grade, and it turns out it's 6 steps above grade, and we just decided that that wasn't necessary at that point anymore. So that's just about the only revision we made. Otherwise, the drawings are pretty similar to what you saw and had conceptually approved. I know I had on my notes that Mr. Burns talked about the siding, and we do call out T111 siding. And I went back and researched it and could find it at Home Depot. And I talked to our contractor and just said, could you confirm you're finding T111 siding? And it's not something else. And he went to his supplier and said, no, we have it. They have it in stock. So we've kept it T111 siding, which will match the existing house. So, the only other comments you talked about were windows, which I put the elevation first, but if you flip through the slides, that we do have some of the details and sections for you. And it is just the Holland Hills standard window detail so that our windows are matching the existing windows. We match the heights as much as we could. Sometimes the headers caused us to lower the head height a little bit from the existing, but other than that, we were trying to kind of keep it blending with the existing.
All right. Thank you. One, I'd ask if any member of the public has a comment on this one for application for review. No members of the public. We got plenty of members of the public with no comments. And then I'd look to members of the board for comments and or questions on this application. And obviously, Ms. Orr, Ms. Murray, if you do have one, please feel free to raise your hand. Let us know. Well, I do have one or two. I would say I think the big thing that makes, because this in concept, this, I think I agree with Mr. Plumpy, this is big. But I think looking at the site and understanding the stepping that's going to happen here, I think it's less a concern for me than other types of additions I've seen where we're adding a similar amount of square footage or even less, because it just makes the original house just become subsumed to the addition itself. I think obviously a lot of this in the end is going to depend upon how that landscaping, everything survives, because obviously the addition will still stand out. But I think if it's done well, then it will be subservient to the proper house. But that's my initial reaction on it based on the prior workshop session and this presentation here. But that's my thoughts. Look, if there are any other board members that have comments.
Could I respond to that?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I know it is a big mess, but we purposely set it back a little bit from the main house, and the lower part steps down to be on the lower level of the backyard. So
that's why I feel like I am okay with it. There's you're taking advantage of some topography, at least in my mind here, and the style of the addition, which I think not every Goodman house has the benefit of a site that allows them to take advantage of those factors. Some of the siting situations that basically said you have to do it here, and it has to be 2 stories. So I
think when we finish landscaping and cleaning it back up in the front, it won't be so in your face when you drive up and see the house. So
thank you. And I see Ms. Murray has a comment. Ms. Murray, floor is yours.
At the workshop, I expressed concern that the drawings did not adequately show the existing house and the effect of the addition on the house. These drawings seem to be unaltered, so as a result, I'm going to incline to deny the application.
in response, I'm not quite sure what else I could have shown. And
You don't show all of the existing house. You only show a portion of it.
What I'm not showing is about 3 feet of the storage wall that looks just like on the front elevator. Can you go back to the first slide, A3?
I raised this at the workshop. I don't need to hear the same argument again. I said it before and I'm still feeling that way.
I just ran out of paper. I mean, the only thing not shown is on the very, very far left of the house. That really isn't seen, but.
Understood. Any other members with comments, questions? Not seeing any, I would entertain a motion. Mr. Plumpy.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I move that the ARB approve action item ARB 24 HOL 19 located at 1820 Drury Lane, Alexandria, tax map 0933040024 in the Holland Hills HOD. For the proposed addition as submitted and presented at the July 11, 2024 ARB meeting. Upon review of these materials, the proposal is found to meet requirements of zoning ordinance 3101, historic overlay district.
Thank you, Mr. Plumpy. Do we have a second? Seconded by Ms. Wan. We'll do a roll call vote again, not just to not put Mr. Burns on the spot. I'll go in reverse order. Ms. Wan?
Aye.
Aye. Yes. Ms. Mangum?
Aye.
Mr. Daniels, aye. Mr. Zellman?
Aye.
Mr. Plumpy?
Aye.
Mr. Burns?
Aye.
Ms. Murray?
Nay.
And Ms. Orr?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Votes counted. The motion passes. Thank you very much, ladies.
Thank you.
All right. That takes us on to item number 3. This is ARB 24 HOL 16 2200 Glasgow Road Solar Project. This is again in the Holland Hills Historic Overlay District. The applicant is proposing the installation of 21 roof-mounted solar panels and is being represented by Solar World Energy. And if you could, for the record, state your name so we have it on.
Absolutely. Xander Yee representing Solar Energy World.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you, sir. Floor is yours.
So for ARB 24 HOL 16, 2200 Glasgow Road Solar, we are installing 21 roof mounted solar panels. If you scroll to the next slide, one more, sorry about that. We are using Q-Cell Q-Peak MLG 10 plus solar panels for this project. They're American manufactured and sourced, and they're completely black on black. Now, these 21 panels are going to be mounted on the south facing roof plane belonging to the property.
All right. Are there any members of the public that have comments on this application? All right, y'all are all over there now, so I can get that answered real easy. No members of the public with comments. All right, I would turn it over to our members for comments or questions on this item for application. Yes. Oh, no, it was your glasses.
No,
Oh,
glasses,
I
sorry.
caught you there.
I got nothing.
So, I mean, oh, go ahead, Mr. Plumpy.
Sure.
You got a question?
Normally, I'd have an issue with this application because the solar panels are facing the public roadways. The roof is so shallow, I don't think they're as obnoxious, or maybe not even obnoxious at all, based upon steeper pitched roofs, at least in my observation. I assume that the road is also lower than the house, so I don't think you'll really see these. So I just wanted to say I don't have an issue, at least for now. And as what color are the shingles or the built-up roof on the house itself? Is it black also, so this goes away, or is it white gravel?
If you could scroll up to the, I believe, the previous slide, or possibly one more. So it looks like the shingles are a little grayish in color.
Mr. Burns, you're the expert of that neighborhood. Are there shingles or are they built up like a gravel?
I am not familiar with that particular.
Okay.
Okay. Mr. Zelman has a comment?
I just had a question, and maybe it's just me. I know there's some photos at the end that are showing like the electrical box and stuff. Where is the conduit running, and where is it going to look like as it comes off the roof, and then is it coming down the side of the house, or how is that going to work?
So in terms of the conduit, for the most part, I believe 80% of our projects, all the conduits are hidden in the attic. Worst case, they're going to be ducked behind the gutters, painted to match the color of the gutters, so they will not be visibly striking to the public. If you scroll one slide up, all the necessary quote-unquote boxes, the AC disconnect will be installed on the right-hand side facing the front of the home, and that side is hidden from the street.
This was the one picture, this was the one I think I had my question about, was so it has the load center and the utility disconnect. And so if I have myself oriented, that's the side with also the meter, correct?
Correct.
But right where those are shown, if I'm looking at the pictures, there's, window. I see where you could put the existing meter and stuff, but my big concern is if you go to one of the pictures that shows the box, I don't understand where the load center is going to go. Like it's in the packet we have, it's I couldn't tell you the page, it's way down there, but it's a picture of that side that's almost all window. So you've got
69 of 80.
Yeah, there you go. But you're showing these two utility equipment well, I can't read them again. The two boxes on the right next to that, what are those and how are they attaching when there's seems to be no place to attach other than pure glass?
So I have to apologize. I'm not too familiar with this project, so it's my first time actually seeing the site photo. I could just tell you if you can please show an image of that side.
Let's get you the picture and then you can see why because I agree with Mr. Zelman. I think that's one of the obviously, if we don't have an issue with the location on the roof, I think another issue we might have is how it's going to affect the exterior of the building. So there. So I have a hard time understanding where the other boxes can go if that's the only place.
So I know on the diagram they are designed side by side, but basically we can go vertically, go underneath or above the location of the meter that looks like the exterior main panel right there. So most likely that is what is intended. I understand on the diagram they're located side by side. That's just for clarity purposes.
So, yeah, go ahead.
And just, can you give us kind of scale, like how big these boxes are that we're talking about?
So the AC disconnect, that is essentially the switch, basically.
Yeah.
That's small. And then essentially the sub panel, the load control is a little bit smaller than the AC disconnect.
Okay.
Yes, and I see Miss Marie has her hand raised, so definitely get, okay. So that, I would obviously suggest that be a modification we place on that's exactly where those have to go. I mean, there's no other option, but before any of that, Miss Murray, you had a comment or question on this one?
No. I took
No?
my hand down.
Oh,
I
okay.
took my hand down.
Sorry, we saw your hand go up, so we wanted to make sure.
Well,
Okay.
I expressed concerns to you in an email that I don't think this application is as complete as the ones that we did in March, and put the team from Laurel Hill through a ringer. And I feel that there's a lot of detail that's not on this one that was in the last one, and I'm not sure it's fair. But that's a comment for voting, not a comment for the applicant.
Understood. And I did get your comment on it. At this point, though, the application was submitted, so we're not in an ability to deny an application that's been brought to us. I think Ms. Swan, you had a comment or question?
I do have a question. But the site was kind of at the corner, and the front yard is, you can see the house from the street, and we didn't see any photo that you took from the street. And since the solar panel will be at the front of the house.
Yes.
I want to make sure, is this the house that, because I get it from Google.
Yep, that's what it looks like, yes.
So from the street, you actually can see the front roof very clear.
Oh, so the street is higher.
Okay,
I see it.
I think the solar panel will be visible,
Thank you.
right?
No, absolutely. It is on the south facing roof plane, which is going to be street visible. But basically the reason why it's on that side of the roof and not the other side is that the opposite roof plane is facing north.
Right.
And basically for solar, that would have more than a 10% effect in terms of the production of the panels.
Definitely.
And by Virginia code and Virginia solar access law, panels on a south facing roof plane cannot be inhibited if it has more than a 10% effect on the production of the system.
I see.
All right.
Mr. Daniels?
Yes.
I just asked Mr. Burns this question, that's the residents there, is, does the applicant need to go to the HOA of Holland Hills Architectural Review Board?
The DRB,
Or
design review, the DRC.
Yeah.
DRC for this kind of stuff?
I don't know if I know the answer to that question. I'm seeing a head nod that says yes behind Mr. Burns.
I don't know the answer.
Yes,
I'm sorry, who are you?
sorry. I'm here representing another project, but I do a lot of work in Holland Hills, and I've seen a bunch of these come through the DRC, and they've gotten approved.
So has this project gone through, do you know if it's gone through the Holland Hills
Neighborhood
design?
I would
review?
imagine so, just because I know the way we work.
Yes, sir.
I'll just notify to attend this ARB meeting.
I'm pretty sure it did. I'm pretty sure I was at that meeting. I'm like 99% sure. Don't quote me on it, but I think.
Well, you're in a recorded meeting, so you've just been quoted. No, okay, so we don't know for certain, but yes, it does sound like they do need to go for the DRC. Obviously, that's another civic board, so it doesn't really have any sway over the ARB's approval of something. I think, Mr. Burns, you were going to put your hand up too, so I want to.
Yeah, I have a lot of problems with this project. You are correct that if it's on a south facing and you lose 10% by putting on a different face, that, kind of approved. That's something the solar panel industry pushed through the Commonwealth of Virginia some while back, and we're stuck with it. We got to live with it. But nevertheless, not everybody has to put in solar. You can do geothermal and other types of energy saving means of heating and cooling your homes. This particular application, it is visible. And based on a solar panel array that we approved on Martha's Road a number of months ago, they look pretty dreadful. particularly where they're on the street facing side. So my question to you is, what ability does your company have to mitigate the blocky nature of it and blend these panels in the overall roof, not just look like panels laid on top of it?
In terms of our ability, there is a technology called solar roof, where we essentially replace the entire roof, all of the shingles, with essentially glass. In terms of an impact financially, I can tell you those things cost 4 times as much and work half as well. And that is one reason it's generally not recommended for economic reasons for residential solar. In terms of the blockiness, the panels unfortunately come in rectangles. We try our best to create a giant rectangle on the roof plane to make it look like a single plane of glass. But depending on the structure of the house, we can only do so much in terms of making things symmetrical and aesthetic.
So why is it left off a corner panel on the roof? You just said you try and make it a block, but your array leaves out one corner panel. Why?
Could you go back to the slides, please? So in terms of that bottom corner, I believe there might be an obstruction, a vent, a pipe that would prevent a panel from being located in that corner.
I don't recall that in your photographs. It seems to me that if you're trying to minimize the impact, visual impact, I mean, in an earlier votes tonight, I abstained for 2 other solar panels. I was willing to let those go because they were not on contributing buildings. This is a contributing building in a historic overlay district, and I have a different threshold there. And I think that it behooves us to look at solar panels not as there's nothing we can do about it approval, but as something that we as a board should look at very carefully, very thoughtfully, very seriously. And, you know, imagine all these black panels on that light gray roof. Pretty rough. That's a pretty dramatic difference visually. And this is a house that was just featured in the Holland Hills House and Garden Tour. Had those panels on the roof? I think it may not have been, because it's a visual intrusion and it diminishes the historic character of the property. So I'm quite concerned that we start going down this road and just approving these things because it's legal. I think that we're diminishing the overall historic character of the entire neighborhood. I noticed that you have another one coming before us tonight.
Correct.
Okay, so this is, you know, clearly you got your toe in the water in the neighborhood.
Yes, so we do quite a bit of work in front of this board. I believe we have 4 or 5 installations already. The 2 action items that were on the consent calendar were our projects as well. And we're the ones that are going to be installing and maintaining that system. So we are friends to this ARB. I understand what you're saying about aesthetics. Again, I'm not too familiar with the reasoning why that bottom corner might have been left out. One thing I might suggest, if you can go back to the slide, is that right now there is a gap in the center of the panels due to vents pipes that are listed. We possibly could remove the single panel underneath the vents, move that over to fill in that bottom corner. It would make things more symmetrical and rectangular. Basically, we would just have to resubmit 4 permits, but basically I can't comment on the reason why that single panel was left out, but essentially requiring the homeowner to purchase another solar panel that they might not need just to fill in that gap could be a little difficult to convey to the homeowner.
That's a question I think that you might place to the homeowner. This homeowner took great pains and I'm sure went to great expense to get their house in show-worthy condition.
Yes.
A few months ago, and I'm sure that they're very concerned about the aesthetics of their home and they're proud of it. And so that's something that I think that, you know, should be within the realm of possibilities.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was communicating with the homeowner before I came. Now, this is a design that he had personally already approved. So in terms of the aesthetics and what he's okay with, in terms of having installed on his roof plane, he had already granted his consent. And depending on the ruling of this board, there are some alterations that could be possible if that would make sense for him. The only caveat is if we do go forward with what I suggest, basically that would require multiple groundings, multiple conduit runs, because the panels will not unable to connect to each other. That does increase the cost a bit to the homeowner.
You know, it's impossible to take away one of the top center panels and put it down in the lower corner. So that you have a continuous edge, just like the continuous edge of the roof, you have a continuous edge at the bottom of the panels. And it's going to be interrupted at the top already because of the roof protrusions. So I think that would be less noticeable that way. Perhaps you do it on the Hopkins Road side, because it's more likely to be somewhat more screened by the trees in the front yard. But anyway, these are just things that I think haven't shown up in your presentation.
No,
I think that should be considered.
No, absolutely.
I think it behooves us as a board to let people know that although this is something that you can do, you need to think twice about, is this the best thing for your property? Is this the best thing for the community? And for us, is it the best thing that we can do to preserve over time the historic character of the neighborhood? So this is not going to get my vote tonight, but I'm one vote. I'm just going to speak my mind about it.
Mr. Plumpy.
Sure. I had a question. Did you look at putting them on the north? Well, it's on the east side of the roof. This is on the west side because your north row says north is top of sheet, according to your diagram here. So it's right now the panels are on the west side. So on the east side, I know you have trees in the backyard, but on your photograph in the lower portion, I'm looking at page 13 of our submittal that we received. That's the aerial photograph of the property that shows your panels drawn on it. And it shows, I'm assuming that it's a early morning photograph because it has a long shadow on it. So what's interesting, I've yet to see a solar panel consultant come in here that has a solar study of the house property, as opposed to, hey, here it is, here's a photograph. We take it for granted. Yes, it's facing east or facing west, south, east, whatever. So I put money on the barrelhead here that after a certain time mid-morning, that eastern roof gets a lot of sun because it's not a steep roof. So I would challenge you all to put the solar panels on the backside to solve all these issues that Mr. Burns has. You also have a flat roof structure. It looks like a flat roof structure where they, on the driveway, yeah, like on that, yes. Would you put them on there? Just, it's flat, so it gets sun, going to get a blazing amount of sun during noon and so forth. So I would like to retract what I said about you could not see it from the roadway, Ms. Hall. Proved me wrong on that. I'm siding with Mr. Burns. I doubt if I can support this because I don't think there's enough information, especially where the things are located on the side of the house. Are you painting them or whatever? But I think you got a flat roof structure. You can add them on there and put them on the back side of the roof, even half of it, where right now it's all sunny in that photograph on page 13 of our application. It's early morning sun, so that's going to get the sun pretty much all day long. So
in response, again, while the back of the home is facing eastern, it's facing northeast. So
according to your compass, it's straight due east. Okay, because your compass is parallel.
Our compass is not straight east, it's northeast. I believe the azimuth is right around 115 degrees. So because it is a pitched roof, it's not a flat roof. It is going to be technically facing away from the sun, the entire sun path throughout the day. Going back to the flat roof structure, to me, that looks like shingles on top of the flat roof. And basically, per code, we're not allowed to install panels on a flat roof, on a flat shingled roof.
I believe it's TPO.
Yeah, I think I beg you to differ. Yeah, if you blow up that, you go to page 13 on our thing.
Well, so what I would suggest is I don't think we need to try to workshop session this application today. I will say, I think Ms. Murray's comment about concerns about sufficiency of the package are coming clearly to light. I think my initial concern was obviously we showed things being located in a spot that I didn't think could be located. I think we don't have I think Mr. Burns' comment earlier about the other two consent items is very illuminating to how this board kind of looks at solar. The other two projects were on non-historic, non-contributing houses in historic overlay districts. So in my mind, and I'm more liberal than he is when it comes to them, they're not affecting, they are either on taller buildings or they're located outside the site of the historic properties themselves, particularly the one that's dealing with the Pohick Church. You couldn't even see it if you tried. You'd also be going like 55 miles per hour. So the odds of you seeing it. On the other hand, this one is located at a focal point in the center of a historic overlay district. And as far as I understand it from the graphics, the roads converge right here. So you're going to see this house and you're going to see these panels. And the last thing I want someone to see is the panels. I want them to see the house because that's what this board's here being charged to protect, are those historic resources, not the panels. We obviously want to make sure applicants and homeowners have the options to access these technologies, but we also want to make sure it's done in harmony with our historic overlay district. So there's concepts and things right now that I don't think were adequately explored or presented to us. I think if the applicant is obvious, the owner is actually very strongly supportive about it, they should probably be here as well advocating for it too. I think that might be to their benefit instead of just having you come speak to it about it in general. But I just want to say, I think hearing the board's reaction, obviously we can take a vote for this action. We can take a vote and it sounds like there's a mixed review. This is all different members, so they can vote however they want. We can also vote to defer if you think we better come back and bring in the submission with some other information. That's an option we can also do as well. But you as the one that's bringing the application would have to tell me if that's your preference.
In terms of the deferral, it would be deferred for a month, is that correct?
It would be deferred until you brought it back. September, because we are recessed in August. But that would be at your discretion. You could obviously ask for, think we should hold the application up and we could take a motion for approval or denial one way or another. You'd have to let me know what your preference is.
But he can also come back if he gets denied tonight.
Yeah, you can come back and you get denied too.
Well, then that sounds like a no-brainer.
So would you
Put it to a vote, yes.
You'd like us to put it to a vote? Okay, well, I would entertain if there's any member of this board that wants to make a motion for this application. Mr. Burns.
Mr. Burns, or Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Burns. See?
Mr. Chairman. Which one? Here it is. I move that the ARB deny action item ARB 24-K2L-16 located at 2200 Glasgow Road, Alexandria, tax map 0933-040085, the Holland Hills HOD as submitted and presented at the July 11, 2024 meeting. The motion to deny the application is due to inadequate information to properly review the application. Upon review of the materials, the proposal is found not to meet the requirements of zoning ordinance 3101, historic overlay districts.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second? Seconded by Ms. Swan.
I'll have to make an amendment.
A friendly, okay, you'd like to propose an amendment?
That's a friendly amendment that the applicant comes back with potential different solar arrays that would shield its view from the public street.
So I would suggest, Mr. Plumby, that could be part of the reason that we are denying is we do not have information regarding options for shielding the view from the public right away. Because this application is not mandating the applicant do anything if we didn't vote to deny. It's
right. Would it be useful, in your, Mr. Chairman, your opinion, to have a specificity in the inadequate information?
I think it would definitely help. I think I'd look for my vice chair.
I think it's fine.
Okay. May I add to it then?
Yes.
Okay. The motion to deny the application is due to the lack of adequate information to be able to properly evaluate the application, specifically lack of the photo
Solar, what's that?
Array.
the
Yes, a solar study.
a solar study and the lack of study of alternative arrangements of the panels that would be less visible from the public right away.
Agreed.
Second, or do you accept that revision?
Yes.
All right. All right. We have a motion on the floor, a motion to deny. I will remind members that if you are voting to deny, you do have to say aye. You don't say nay to deny, just to clarify here. So we'll do roll call vote again. Mr. Burns?
Aye.
Plumpy?
Aye.
Mr. Zellman?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Abstain, Ms. Swan, Ms. Murray,
Aye.
Ms. Orr.
Aye.
All right, the motion passes with a denial. All right, obviously we have a recess in August, but we can definitely look to see you back in September.
I'd like to
All
say
right.
something to the applicant. What he didn't realize is that in March, we went through a lot of trouble with one of your competitors and asked for a lot more detail than we've asked for in the past, because we felt that we weren't getting a good record on these projects. And that's why things are different now. Because we're being more stringent in asking that you show us more of what you're doing.
I believe, Daniel, if you'll correct me, those applications were taken up at was it the June meeting or was it the May meeting we took those up? It was March? Was March?
It was March. I looked it
Time
up.
is a flat circle. Okay. So I might suggest we have our recorded minutes and everything for the March meeting. They would show what that applicant submitted. That might help you understand what Ms. Murray is referring to that we were asking for them for specifically.
Actually, he
And
needs
Daniel,
to look
obviously.
at both March meetings. He needs to look at both March meetings because we did a deferral on Thursday and approval on Monday.
You're right. Sorry. First and second March meeting. Okay. All right. This brings us you're back, right?
Yes.
Okay. ARB 24 HOL 17 205 Marfa's Road solar located on Marfa's Road is proposing installation of 19 solar mounted panels. Our same representative. Welcome back, sir.
That is correct. We are installing 19 roof mounted solar panels. Now to the light of this board, these are being installed on a flat roof on PPO and should not be visible from the street.
All right. Is there any member of the public that has a comment on this one?
Yes, I do.
Yes.
I know for a fact this was approved by the DRC.
And what's her name?
What is your name for the record?
Deborah Lerner. I was at the meeting.
All right. All right. We have a member of the public that confirms it was approved by the DRC. All right. All the public congregated over there except for one. It's okay. All right. So any members of the board that have comments or questions on this submission? Mr. Burns, sorry.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Haven't spoken so forcefully about the last application. This is an application where I think it works, that it is within the envelope of accessible rooftop surface area, exposed to the appropriate amount of sunlight, and not dramatically visible from the street. In fact, I think this inclines slightly away from the street, so that it in effect faces almost south. And so here's an instance where a solar panel, though it's not a solar roof, can be installed on a roof in Howland Hills successfully without severely diminishing the historic character of the property or the community. So this one would get my support.
Here. All right, Mr. Plumpy.
I'd like to make a motion.
Oh, I was going to say as well, I'm happy. So I want to say the contextual photos of the location was one thing in particular. I think this board was very concerned about when it regards to the disconnects, and all that information, because I think a lot of times, even when we had panels that were in an ideal location, we then didn't have enough context as to where all the other conduit and stuff would come from. And particularly for some of our historic overlay districts and for some Howland Hills homes, the electrical boxes and stuff are located in prominent areas. Thus, adding all these additional boxes is going to, again, create another potential eyesore. This one, I think the pictures really helped me understand where they were going to. Having you talk about previously that they're showing me all the boxes on the side, I think I'm a little more okay with that given the spot that this box is going to be in. So I just wanted to throw that clarification out there too, that it's not just the panels themselves. We have lots of persnicketiness. Is there any other members that have comments? And looking to my two wonderful ladies online, not seeing any from them. All right, I would entertain a motion. Mr. Plumpy.
Sure, thank you. Mr. Chairman, I move that ARB approve action item ARB 24 HOL 17 located at 2205 Martha's Road, Alexandria, tax map 0930401111 in the Holland Hills HOD for the proposed installation of roof-mounted solar panels as submitted and presented at the July 11th, 2024 ARB meeting. Upon review of the materials, the proposal was found to meet the requirements of zoning ordinance 3101 historic overlay districts.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second? Oh, seconded by Mr. Zellman. All those, I gotta do roll call. Mr. Burns?
Aye.
Lumpy?
Aye.
Mr. Zellman?
Aye.
Aye for the chair. Ms.
Aye.
Madden? Ms. Swan? Ms. Murray?
Yay.
Ms. Orr?
Aye.
All right, motion carries. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, that takes us on to our last item for action, ARB 24 HOL 18 7218 Beechwood Road addition. This is an addition on historic Holland Hills Historic Overlay District. The applicant is proposing an interior and exterior alterations, adding interior space and a new stone entryway patio, roof overhang and assembly. Mr. Michael Cook represents the application.
I actually also got myself, Louis Stenig, I'm the homeowner. Just wanted to give a brief kind of introduction to the project and purpose before handing it over to Michael to talk through more details on the project. So obviously, we wanted to do this for a couple of reasons. But the main reason is that we want to put in a fourth bedroom onto our primary floor because my wife and I have 3 kids. We don't have enough bedrooms for all of us to be on the same floor, so it's important to us to have us all together. And we thought about how to be able to put this addition in place in a way that would also improve the overall architecture and aesthetic of the house. One of the things that we've kind of had a bit of a pain point with since we bought it was the addition is quite large next to the original Goodman house. I think you said earlier that, it can sometimes additions can subsume the original homes. And one of the things that we wanted to try to do with this project was to better integrate and connect the original Goodman home to the addition, both in the interior and the exterior. On the interior side, right now, there is a very narrow hallway that connects the original Goodman house to the addition. And we spent a lot of time traversing through that hallway to get to where the kids are playing in the living room between the kitchen. And one of the main goals and benefits of this project is that we connect visually the new kitchen of the home directly to the original Goodman living room through a sunken living room, which is dear to my heart as I had one of those in my mid-century house in California that I grew up in. So we're very excited about the concept interiorly of connecting the house, but also on the exterior, we're really bridging the 2 buildings nicely, I think, together. It's been a long time trying to figure out how to be able to make this house work for our family, and we're really happy with the work that Michael and his team have done in putting this plan together. So I'll turn it over to him to go over much more detail of how this works.
Very good, thank you. We did a pretty good job. I think you should just keep going. It could be more detail than I'm probably going to be able to give. So first slide, please. Okay, so this is the original house. It is right here, 1953, about a 2,100 square foot, 2-level butterfly house sitting up on a hill. This is from the 2012 edition, the small breezeway, and then that's the larger volume, which is a shed roof going downward away from the front elevation. And this is where we are planning the addition is going to all happen right in this space. That added space is 186 square feet and 100 square foot outdoor entry patio. Next slide, please. Here's these are both the proposed, this is sort of the basement plan, but this gives you a really good idea. This is the existing house, 1953, 2012 edition, this really large volume here. And then these are the 2 volumes we are planning to add. This is the sunken living room area here, which is going to open up and connect these 2 spaces, and that's the outdoor patio. Next slide, please. This is the floor plan. You can kind of see the existing right here. Just a little bit about the inside. There's a kitchen right here, this really large, huge volume, and this really tight hallway that Lou was describing here. And there's no real connection between this living space and this space. So what we are planning on doing is to open this up right here. The addition is sort of from my ruler going out. That's the added space. Chop this wall a little bit, add a sunken living room, And the new master bedroom will be here connecting to this existing bathroom. Talking about the inside because it really has a lot to do with the outside and what we're planning on doing relative to this entry area. So a couple things to think about. One is this, in terms of our elevation, I'll get on this in a little bit. There's this large square on the existing building, which is vertical wood siding. We are bringing that back into our addition here. There is a bank of 3 Goodman style windows, which is right in this area here. And then a front entry piece, the other sort of architectural feature on the front is this, the shed roof that is sloping down. It's a very slight shed roof. It's supported by a beam that's extended out here. And that's a little homage to Richard Neutra, another great mid-century architect. Next slide, please. These are the roof plans, so I'll talk about this in a little bit. This is the added space. This is a butterfly roof that's flipping up in this direction. This is a shed roof coming down this way. We have 3D renderings, which you can see. So our added space, we had a lot of difficulty in determining what would this roof be like over, because we're extending out, and how can we actually make all of that happen? And that was sort of one of the big design challenges. Next slide, please. This is the floor plan blown up. Next slide, please. This is the resolution. So we're looking now towards the south, the southwest, I guess. This is the 2012 roof, is this large volume here. And then this is the sunken living room. And then our added area is sort of right in this area here. So what we've done is have this very low pitch roof, low pitch gable roof. And that actually mimics the same shape as the butterfly roof right is here, which is a 3/4 to 12 roof pitch. So we're basically copying the original Goodman design, and we're bumping up a little bit here, but that's the only way we could find some resolution. But from visible from the street down here, what we're doing is having the very slim eave projection comes out, and it's like a 3 or 4 inch eave projection. It's actually going to line up with the existing butterfly roof. So that's sort of the driver of the geometry here. And the only part we didn't like about is this roof sticks up a little bit, but it's completely buried. No one would ever see that unless you're flying around in a helicopter. So the next slide, please. I'll try to pick it up. Here's the 3D. Here's the entry area. The door takes you in this direction. This is the added bank of windows, which is the Goodman module, 3 foot 1.5 on center. This is the slate roof here. And as you can kind of see from here, what we're trying to do is wrap this roof around the front of the building to reduce the volume of that 2012 addition. Next slide, please. How did that happen? We missed a bunch of stuff. Next slide. Oh, okay. So this is the front elevation, and you can kind of see we're just bringing the lines across. This is the existing house and this wood volume here. We're adding that here. The front stairs are up in this direction. And again, trying to reduce this really large front elevation and lower that mass by breaking it and chopping it in half with this eave that sticks out to the front. This is existing, and this is what we're proposing. Next slide. More of the same, just a bigger version of it. Next slide. And this is an early rendering. We're just trying to figure out exactly sort of the color of the building and then this overall design. And that was one of the first sketches that we came up with. But you can kind of, so in terms of the color, one other thing, the building now is painted green, and then the fascia board has also been painted green. So part of our proposal, we talked about this in the last meeting, that we're going to come back and have this lower floor level or upper floor level base fascia that wraps around the building. That's all going to go back to white. And then we're going to, right now, we're sort of proposing a charcoal, all the siding is a 1x4. When they did this addition, they did a nice job. They actually copied the 1x4 siding. It's on the existing building. And then we'll do the same for this. This will be the 1x4 redwood or Western red cedar stained dark. And then we propose to stain that and then paint the that base of the second floor fascia board white again. Next slide. These are some 3D views. Next slide. Next slide, please. Oh, this is the side. Okay, so on the side elevation, we do have some slight modifications. The kitchen is going in this area, and we have a wraparound bench. So these windows, which are the non-conforming building, this is the 2012 edition. And we're going to modify these windows right here. Next slide. So in that design, right there, there's a bench. You can sort of see it's dashed in right in this area right here. It'll be a cement board panel low and a window up high. And then this area here is a tall kitchen cabinet. So we're going to fill in one of those windows as well. And again, that whole part is, it's not the original Goodman building. Next slide. That's a blow up of the same elevation. Next slide. And I think this is a good one. I think we've presented up. I would go back one and we can just leave it at that for discussion.
Okay. Is there any member of the public that has a comment on this one? All right, not seeing any, I would look to our members for comments or questions on this application. Mr. Plumpy.
I say it's excellent presentation. Love the 3D and a hand drawer. In here, but I love the hand sketch way back early. It really shows some good character of the proposed addition. I think you did an excellent job. That's exciting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Ms. Swan.
Second, that comment, love every piece of this. So good job.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
So just to give other members some time to breathe, that's a big boy 2012 edition right there. That is a
Yes, sir.
it's a big. So I applaud your effort to break it up and kind of minimize it there and try to do some interconnected work in the space there. I'm not an architect. I'm an architectural historian, so I make sure that I preserve things that they're when the architects are dead, we remember them. I don't. The only thing that gave me concern about this was that roof in the middle, and I just worry how feasible it is. That's my only worry. And again, I would look more to, we got at least one architect and one on, we got a couple here. That was the only thing that worried me is that, is that going to create some kind of, drainage problem or something? Because it seems when you look at it in concept, like, well, that solves it. I just worried about that. And I know you talked a good deal about that. And so that's kind of, I'm also pleading to my other members, if they have any observations on it, please share it. Because that's the only thing that's holding me back. Otherwise is this conceptually just great? And there's a concern there. Any other, Mr. Burns?
Okay, guess I'll take my turn. I have a long history with this building.
Oh.
Agree? Now, I was on the Howland Hills Design Review Committee at the time the large addition came in and fought bitterly against it. Its bulk, its mass, the steeper slope than the historic house, all sorts of things. And it was accentuated by the fact that topography here is from the street. This is probably 1.5 stories up to get to the front entrance, right? So you're looking up at this thing and you have that thing looming up at, it kind of looms over the original house. And the original house is one of the larger of the Goodman homes when it was built. And so this kind of dwarfs the original house. So that's, I think that this design softens that dramatic juxtaposition between the original house and the giant volume of it. For whatever reason, that was very fortuitous that architect put that fat band about 1/3 of the way down the elevation that allowed you to bring that roof across and tie the older, smaller mass together with the larger mass that's uphill from it. And I think also the circulation inside. I was invited to come visit the house after. I don't think I was here for the workshop, right? You came for a workshop or something?
No, we did not.
You just dialed me up and say, hey, come look at this.
Exactly.
But anyway, I told them that I had struggled with this house earlier when it was in the community design review. And I think that the change in 3D to the house improves it. I think the change in the floor plan improves the circulation in it. I think that the original 2012 volume back there was a big, huge volume that was underutilized. And the rest of the family is kind of crammed into the part of the house closer to the street. This opens up some of that space and brings more of the family into this large volume at the back of the house. And so I think this is a very sophisticated design that will actually improve the Holland Hills house. So my compliments to you both.
Thank you.
All right, any comments from Ms. Murray or Ms. Orr? Just checking. All right, saying nothing from them. I would love to have a sunken living room too. Anyways, I would entertain a motion. Mr. Zellman.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'd move that the ARB approve action item ARB 24 HOL 18 located at 7218 Beechwood Road, Alexandria, tax map 0933040192 in the Holland Hills Historic Overlay District for the proposed alterations as submitted and presented at the July 11th, 2024 ARB meeting. Upon review of the materials, the proposal is found to meet the requirements of zoning ordinance 3101 Historic Overlay Districts.
All right, you have a motion. Is there a second? Second by Ms. Mangan. All right, we'll do roll call again. Mr. Burns?
Aye.
Mr. Lumpy?
Aye.
Mr. Zellman?
Aye.
Chair is aye. Ms. Mangan?
Aye.
Ms. Swan?
Aye.
Ms. Murray?
Aye.
Ms. Orr?
Aye.
All right, motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you all.
Right, takes us out of our items for action and brings us into workshop sessions. Our first one is ARB 24 HOL 15 WS 2208 Martha's Road Edition. This is again the Holland Hills Historic Overlay District. The applicant is proposing 2 additions, relocating the front entry door and installing a new privacy fence. Ms. Deborah Lerner is representing the application.
Hello, how are you?
Great.
We were here a couple months ago for a workshop on this same property. We got some really great constructive feedback. And so we decided to rejigger it and come back for a workshop, hopefully to get some more constructive feedback from you guys. I see a couple of faces here maybe that may not have been here for the first workshop. So if you need any refresher on what we presented the first time, just speak up and, you know, I'm happy to go over it again. What we presented the first time was a series of 4 changes we were making to the house. A couple of them were kind of no-brainers. We got feedback really concentrated in mainly one area. So I'll just kind of focus on that today. If you don't mind, I'll just step up here. The privacy fence was kind of the no-brainer. We were replacing an original privacy fence to the house. The bedroom addition of the rear of the house was a little bit of a no-brainer also, barely visible. I'm happy to talk about it to whatever extent you'd like to, but that's just not what we rejiggered today. The door relocation also we can talk about today, but isn't the main focus. The main thing that we changed was the first time that we came here with this design, we had an addition to the living room wall of our house, the living room and office, which is what I'll call sort of one of 2 front facades of the house because it's at an angle to Martha's Road. And the main feedback that we got was that that's the kind of main big glass wall of this ranch Holland Hills house. And it's this pristine thing and it's a butterfly roof and it would have meant extending the butterfly roof and just kind of don't touch it, right? So we sort of rejiggered our plan and found that the client could live without getting a bigger living room and we could find another location to add an office. And so that's what we've kind of done to the floor plan. And so what you're seeing here is a front addition that doesn't touch that glass wall at all, doesn't touch the front of the butterfly roof, and that's where the office is. If we can move forward a slide, I'll sort of go into that more. We can skip this one really. So this is the new floor plan, and this is that main wall that we're talking about, and we're just gonna not touch it at all, right? And so this rear of the house is where there was a brick wall and no glass. And this is where we're sort of creating, just minimizing our addition just to that front part. We can slide forward again, it'll become more clear. Okay, so this is that view from the street of that wall. I know it's a little bit hard to see because we do have this brick wall. This is the glass of the living room, and behind this tree is the brick wall at the end of the house. This is behind that wall, getting up a lot closer to the house. So this is the living room wall that we're just gonna leave as is. And this back here, now we're kind of tucked behind this tree. You can just see at the back of the house, this brick wall, right, at the back corner of the house. And this is a rendering of what that would be like. You know, it's a little kind of wonky here, but you can see now this is the living room wall and the front facade of the house that's staying untouched. and that's the office addition. This is kind of a great photograph because it's the front of the house. And I think the crucial thing and some, important feedback that we got was that this is this really great symmetrical butterfly roof. And by not touching that living room wall and not extending that roof, it remains that way. We're not sort of making it unbalanced and extending one side of that roof any longer, even though, technically we could. So we remain with this kind of, pristine front elevation. And we can kind of scoot forward one more. These are rear views. We can talk about them if we want, but this is just the bedroom addition that we always had. Let's scoot forward a little bit more. So this is the original photograph. You may remember this because it's actually part of your documents. We talked about that a little bit. This is actually my client's house. This house, that's the privacy fence that we're adding back in. And that is their front facade. That's a picture today. So we're going to just leave the roof as is and not try to extend it on one side. We can scoot forward again, please. There's the rendering. We can talk about the door relocation again if you'd like as well, although this wasn't a change. We didn't rejigger that because they really still feel like this is a crucial thing for not just the outside of their house and the way that it welcomes people to their home, but it really changes the dynamic of the way their interior flows and creates, it's a family, and relocating that door gives them an entire closet and drop-off point. It changes the entire function of their house and makes it a really livable space for them, especially when they're sort of sacrificing the living room and whatnot. So we're really sort of hoping that because this home is still angled away from the street, this view is really dead on. You don't actually view the house this way ever in real life. And we can certainly go back and look at what the view from the street really is. We're sort of proposing that the door goes here instead, but it's still really tucked away and gives that still Holland Hills feel of having a door that's a little bit of a mystery from the street still. And we can scoot forward. So these are elevations, the 3D views probably spoke, they probably said everything we need to. Yeah, you know what, I'll just stop there.
Okay. And then it's workshops, so no members of the public. I'm not going to ask them this time. So again, workshop session. So obviously members are welcome to provide comments, feedback, and observations to this application for future. So I think there were several folks that weren't here for the last time, but I will say that I appreciate you trying to find a solution that works with, and I think Ms. Hammock was one of the folks that was most concerned about it, because I think she actually wrote some of her papers about, and this house was one of the houses that was featured in it. When she saw it, she's like, I know exactly this house. So the idea of building out that window wall to basically stretch it back out and extend the butterfly roof and everything, I think, I'm trying to wrap my head around what's the best. I think you went to the most obvious solution, which was we got a brick wall here and build off that. And I think the renderings are helping me visualize it. I don't feel like we had a site plan of it in this, or a site view of it. Did we? Like a view of it on the? So
there are if you go back towards the beginning, if you want to understand the orientation on the site, there's both an aerial and.
Okay, yeah, perfect. I missed that there.
There you go.
All right. Thank you. That helps answer one of the questions I just wanted to see, but obviously I'd look to other members who might have thoughts or observations on this. Mr. Burns.
I will speak up. I did not see this before.
No, you were not that meeting.
It's not here, but I understand the concern with the 10 window wide wall as a character defining feature of this property. I've always regarded this house as one of the iconic houses in Holland Hills. The Robert Lautman photograph has been reproduced again and again and again and again. And I have gone back and photographed this house maybe every 10 years or so. You can watch as the owners get elderly and the house kind of runs down and then it comes back up, and then it's a bell curve. It's interesting to watch, but it's a fascinating house to me. I like the idea of respecting that window wall, pushing the addition on the I'll call it the right side of the house back. And then I think that that's an improvement. I didn't see it earlier, but I think it's better this way. And then in terms of the elevations, probably the renderings, the color renderings, can we go to those? Okay, not that one. Keep going.
So that's the rear of the
But that
house.
one, there, right there, the upper left rendering there. Okay,
So that's at the rear of the house.
right.
looking
This
into the
this is the
kitchen,
first edition that you were proposing.
the bedroom.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, there, that side of the house, you can see it in the photograph. There was a brick wall at the height of the counter in the kitchen. And it extended along the end of the house and it gave some definition and purpose there. But now when you build on what in most other versions of this house with a regular gable roof would have been just a blank wall like on the other side, they actually had windows. But anyway, that gave that brick wall. And then when you look at the rendering in the upper left, right, of that same place with the bedroom addition built out, that's a whole lot of unbroken flat surface. One of the things that occurred to me is maybe we could consider, or you could consider, taking that brick wall at that height and just wrapping around those two parts of it to continue that line. And, honor, otherwise that piece of brick just kind of sits there. And it's kind of an anomalous feature that's left once you build the addition. So do you follow what I'm saying there?
100%. Yep, I follow.
So there's that. And then when you go around to the others, and then in the lower right, that brick would walk around and then it wouldn't need to continue because you've got the window wall there.
Yeah, it's the same detail as the way it ends currently, basically.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. So, it's kind of, anyway, that's a suggestion. Then the same type of view of the studio edition, if we can go, I think a couple more, at least there. Okay. Here, it's again, it's a whole lot of blank wall, but you do have that one window that softens the corner. And the thing that occurred to me here is maybe underneath that overhanging eave is to put a string of windows matching the head of the one window that you're proposing to put in as a means of breaking up that big, tall, blank wall. That's, again, it's just a suggestion, but the idea of not having huge masses of unbroken wall. That's a suggestion as a means of carrying it out. The only other comment I would have is, how are you going to frame these overhangs? And will the county let you go through it and do it at the same thickness as the historic?
Everybody asks that question every single time. DRC, you guys, we talk about this every time. Yes, it's not a problem. So
Okay.
we can either.
I'm glad to hear you say that, because a lot of people come in here and say the county won't let me do it.
No. So, I mean, you're right. The old way of doing it is, they're just sort of sistered on at the end with 2x4s. And cut. But now the easiest thing to do is just to use LVLs for joists, because we can just cut them and shape them to overhang to whatever we want that profile to be at the end. And that's the easy way to do it, honestly.
Thank you for saying that. That is on the record.
LVLs, we got it.
Yeah.
Remember.
I mean, it costs a little more, but honestly, it's the easiest thing to do.
What's the LVL? Laminated.
Vertical, laminated vertical lumber.
Yeah, what she said. Just LVLs.
Think of it as, think in terms of plywood, but it's in
Yeah,
structural shape.
It's like pressed lumber, it's all glued and
No.
it's like perfectly straight and everything. And so you run it and then you just leave it hanging over as an eave and you can just you literally can just cut it to I know my rendering doesn't show it tapered. I just wasn't skilled enough to do that in the rendering, but you can just taper it. You just cut the LVL to whatever shape.
Just kind of jigger it, right?
Yeah, you literally can just, your carpenter just,
Picking up your language, jigger.
oh, yeah, oh, sorry, casual language, yeah.
Well, John, that gets to, I think, what was, when I saw it, the original one and was like the extension of the living room, just slightly, okay, well, it's all gone now. We just blew it all out. That was what was kind of bugging me about this new addition, particularly, I didn't think about it so much with the rear, but with the front, I was looking, I'm like, okay, that's exactly where we talked about, maybe you could do it, and you did it, and it's like, oh, it's so boxy, but I think with that perhaps window change, considering that might be a way of lightening that structure so that it, and I get that this is not the way you would ever see the site, you know, given all the other obstructions that are there, but still you want a quality design too there and not just a solution based on tree cover.
And part of the reason I said that is that when you look at it, I believe that the end points of these two sheds are the tallest parts of the house
Correct.
because they go, you know, they take the highest point of the eave and they keep going.
Yeah.
You know, so you're fairly high in the air.
You know, actually, because it's, you know, it's just, it actually doesn't get that high. And I think I have it dimensioned on the elevations. I think
One was 11, one was
12 feet or
11.6.
something like that.
Yeah.
It's not really that high at the end of the day.
Mr. Dan,
Yes.
just real one little brief comment about this corner that Mr. Burns said to add the strip of windows. Do that, but also a nice place for a specimen tree kind of.
Exactly. I was going to say that what these are lacking is vegetation.
Yeah, just like what
These
the
renderings
photograph-
they're just
the photograph.
bare because they don't have, they're just not showing. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, interesting
unfortunately.
to come back is to actually show maybe specimen tree locations, not necessarily do a full landscape plan, but that will help complement the architecture.
Yeah,
Not like it, but-
there, yeah.
Yeah, one of the things about this house is that the site it has curb appeal from
Sure does.
one corner all the way across the length of the lot to the other corner. And it's, you know, it has interest and catches your eye, and is attractive from what the entire length of its street property
Yeah.
line.
You know, the most interesting thing of this is the chimney that it's, you know, that the narrow end faces the street as opposed to usually it's the flat end, which is kind of cool because that's, you pick up the lines of the architecture. I think it's pretty neat.
What are you gonna do about your lost light fixture at your front door now?
Oh, man. Recess ceiling.
I mean, you're gonna lose, I mean, I've been pretty persnickety about when we move Goodman doors around, but I think this one, I was okay with last time with the concept of, because it's not taking it and moving it to a whole nother plane of the house, but you have a light fixture over the shed right now. Are you doing something new there or is nothing going there at this current?
I'll be honest with you, I honestly have not thought about lighting just yet, but if I can just spitball here for a moment, I think next to the door is a great place for a great sconce. I would say we could drop something, but I honestly don't want to take away from the roof line at all, take any attention away from it. So I think a subtle sconce next to the door.
I'm just thinking about
Way to
Mr. Burns'
go.
future picture he's gonna take.
Oh, fair.
Is there a photograph of what you're describing?
Well,
So when you look at the original photograph, it looks like there is a light there in the photo original over the,
I think it's
shed.
maybe a mailbox over there.
yeah, but I mean,
And so there's some precedent for stuff on that wall.
Yeah.
I guess I would say. So maybe we can come back with a mailbox and a sconce right there next to the door.
I'm just curious. I mean, the historic photograph is so dated, I can't tell if it's there originally or not.
Is that the photograph you're taking? Okay.
Yeah, there's a little, it looks like a colonial light fixture.
But the new door arrangement's obviously gonna lose that because there's now gonna be a lighted
Yeah, you can't
window
really
door.
tell from the original.
There's something dark.
Colonial
That's-
ugly light.
But there was something there in that original photo, it looks like.
Yes.
It's in about the same spot. There's something kind of
Right.
right in the middle toward up
Yeah.
at the roof line.
Right.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm looking at the one from 1952 too.
But I think
I
it's
did.
there
Yeah.
as well.
Phone, I bet I have a.
Okay, I'm
You're
just-
absolutely right. I see now. It's right over the doors.
But that's a Home Depot piece of.
Yeah, it's terrible, isn't it?
But there was clearly something, it looks like there was something there in 1952 as well in this 1952
Okay,
photo.
I'm trying to find the 1952 photo.
You're right. You can just,
In about the same
I
spot.
think it might just be there.
There you go.
So I would say on the same facade, but over.
Okay.
That's, there are better
Okay, got it.
versions of that.
Okay, I just,
Outland photo.
I mean, if there's such effort going into doing that, I figure we want to make sure there's a good fixture there
Yeah.
as well.
I mean, if
I'll make
go
sure
for a
it's
foot or two to the
detailed in my
door,
observations.
would that be amenable to?
Yeah,
Okay.
it wasn't there and I'm thinking about in practicality, it's going to be darker there. So I know there's going to eventually be a fixture. I would suggest when you do come back, make sure you have that information.
That's good tip. Thank you. Yes, good feedback.
The original photographs in the National Building Museum,
Really?
all of Robert Lautman's photographs are there. So you might conceivably, if you really want to go to that level of detail, you can probably get a copy of that photograph.
Question. Would you ever consider putting the fence back?
She's putting.
That's part
It
of
is,
this.
yeah.
We're gonna build we're gonna build the
Hear
same
that.
fence back.
Yeah.
I misspoke. Okay.
Yeah, she's.
Yeah,
That's cool.
that's part of this scope of work.
Is it the original sidewalk that's there right now?
I mean, I can't promise you it's the original stone. I don't know for a fact, but it's,
That
it certainly
curve is
feels
one
like
that is
it's
defeated,
metal.
I think it's awesome.
where it goes kind of from the right side of the parking pad, curves up to it's been there.
That's cool. Sorry, I'm done.
Okay, just making sure I don't see any hands up from Ms. Orr, Ms. Murray. So obviously, if we don't meet in August, we have recess, September. Want to make sure you've seen the other sets of plans that have gone through in Holland Hills and what we want to make sure we see.
Yes.
Make sure that full set's there, all the material information we would need. Obviously photographs still just to make sure. And obviously some of our members who were not here last time who were there the time before are not here. So they may have other thoughts or opinions on it too. I can't promise you anything on that sense, but just want to highlight that information there. All right.
Thank you. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Good job.
All right. Next workshop is ARB 24 HOL 21 WS 2107 Popkins Lane addition. Christine Kelly is representing this application for a one-story addition to the east side of this house. Ms. Kelly, good to see you.
Well, nice to see you. We're here tonight to go through another workshop of the design that we presented last month. And Jen would like to talk a little bit about the addition and what it means for their family. And then I'll talk a little bit about the architectural design. Daniel, you can go ahead to the plat, please, the next slide. Go ahead, Jen.
Well, my name is Jen and I'm here with my husband, Tyler, and wanted to talk to you first about our goals for the house and then share with you a major consideration that we took into account when looking at variations on the addition. So first off, in terms of our goals, we moved into the house 2 years ago. It's a 3-bed, 1-bath, 1,300 square foot. And currently in it is my husband and I, our two-year-old daughter, Amelia, and then my mother. So it's 4 people to a 3-bed, 1-bath, 1,300 square foot house. And that's been perfectly great for the past 2 years, but we're hoping to add on to our family. And so that would lead to 5 people in a 3-bed, 1-bath house. So for that reason, what we are hoping to do in our overall goal for the house with the addition is to have a primary bedroom with a bathroom, so 2 bathrooms, to expand our daughter's nursery. It's currently the size of more of a nursery, and we'd like to expand it to be able to accommodate 2 kids in one room. And then to also add on to our living space, because we frequently host not just friends, but family, both sides of the family at once, and have found issues in having parents, grandparents all try to be comfortable and fit into the house. So those are our goals for the house. Now, in looking at possible additions to the house, one of the major considerations that we took into account and that has severely impacted and limited how much and where we can add onto the house is the existence of a gorgeous, very healthy, ginormous oak tree in the back corner of our house. We very much would like to preserve this tree for 2 reasons. First off, we met with an arborist and confirmed that the tree is healthy and alive and that it is at least 80 years old, which means it existed before the house was built. So the house was built around the tree. So for that reason, it's a beautiful tree, would love to preserve it. But secondly, and also just as important, is we want to avoid having to take down the house because we've been informed that it would severely negatively affect the foundation and the integrity of the house. So when we first moved into the house, we met with a foundation expert, a structural engineer, because we wanted to check the foundation, but then were also afraid that the tree currently situated so close to the house was affecting the foundation. He informed us there was nothing to worry about and that the foundation was fine, the tree was not affecting the foundation, but he cautioned us that should we ever take the tree or add on to the house close to its base, its main arteries, that would lead to rot root. Rot, there you go. Rot, yes, and would lead to integrity issues with the foundation and would be very, very costly to fix. So for that reason, we really took a look at how we could add on while respecting the tree's existence. So with that, I'll turn it over to Christine.
Thank you. Thank you. In this plat, I'm showing where we'd still like to propose adding on to the front of the house. This is the location of the tree. And then this is a letter that we've received from the arborist about the health of the tree and the age of the tree. And the next slide, please. I'd like to take you back through the slides of the site. These were taken in the winter time. And if we look at the next few slides, next one, please. This is a photo of the tree in the winter time. And then I've added a few of the tree currently in the summer, which is in the next slide, to show you here from looking from the street, the tree, and then from the backyard, and another one from the backyard to show it in full leaf and the full canopy of the tree. And the next slide, please. This is the existing, to take you back through the existing footprint of the house with the existing carport down on the front, the lower part of the plan. In the next slide is our proposed addition going out the front with 12 feet of added living space to expand the existing living space, and then the new expanded nursery for Jen and Tyler's 2-year-old, and then their expanded bedroom to give them additional living space. And then this would be for Jen's mother, the 3rd bedroom. And the next slide, please. This is I wanted to show you that the way that the house is situated, although the lot is big, the house is situated in the very tight right-hand corner of the lot. And if I took the same amount of living space, which is just 12 feet wide that we're proposing to add, and put it at the back, I'm over our 15-foot side yard setback and just out kind of on the rim of the canopy of the tree. So there's not really a way to move the addition closer to the tree and without harming the roots of the tree. And you asked us at our last meeting to go through options, and we did. Go ahead.
So could you point out the existing wall of the house? That's a little hard. Okay, so the existing house is that close to the tree right now?
Yes.
Okay, that's I misunderstood. Okay, thank you. Sorry.
And this is, I wanted to show you the same graphic of this living space we're proposing adding onto the front. If we added on to the back, we're up into the side yard setback. So we're a little bit landlocked with the position of the tree. So we've done our studies and our homework, and we feel that the best way to give Jen and Tyler the living space they need and the additional bedroom space is to continue with the addition on the front of the house. The next slide, please. And the next one. One more. Just one other thing that we've done, we've also met with John to talk about ideas for minimizing the addition on the front, is I've lowered the slope of the addition and also set it up on the roof line a little bit so that the existing roof line of the house is more exposed. And that was one of the larger changes that we made. And the next slide is the addition on the back and the next slide is the existing carport. So we're leaving 3 sides of the house untouched and adding on to the front and preserving the 80-year-old tree. I'd like to welcome any questions that you have.
John, or not John, Joe, what's the lifespan of an oak?
Well, I had a white oak, and do you know what type of oak this is? It's like a scarlet or a red oak. It doesn't look like a white oak from its.
Pin oak.
Okay, I was close. Okay, but the white oak, I had one in my yard. It's 165 years old. That had a good depth. So I think you're halfway there, or maybe 2/3 there. But I think I think the tree will still outlive you, perhaps. Maybe not your grandkids.
Okay, I wasn't looking for ominous predictions. No, it was just obviously I wanted to make sure I had some context about that because I'm not an arborist. I'm just, since it's a workshop, I feel like I can speak before the rest of y'all because I don't have to be quiet all the time. I think just looking at the last one, that's a lot of fabric that goes away from that addition. I totally respect the concept you're looking at there, but it also really bothers me how much of the house you're losing there. That, I mean, I see what you're doing with the ideas, proposals that if you talk to Mr. Burns about to try to lighten up, I mean, it's fully recognizing that it is a good design for an addition. That's the whole thing. It's like, it's not a bad addition proposal that you're bringing. It's but from a historic fabric perspective, as the architectural historian on the board, that's a lot of fabric that goes away there, particularly a distinctive feature to a Goodman house that goes away. And so I know while we're trying to replicate that with the new addition and try to, hey, look, we're trying to pay homage to that. I still have ongoing misgivings, even if it may be that they can't ever be assuaged by that conceptual change there, just because of the constraints of the house. I just want to get that out in the open, that from my perspective, when I look at changes to these structures, I think about how much fabric we're taking away and replacing with new, and that's a loss that can't go back, you know. So that's just my thoughts on it right there. I'm not proposing any different design solutions. I would love to see the idea that you could maybe project that green mass out there, but from what you're saying is it's constrained by the tree?
Yes.
Or
Side yard setback.
I'll vote for a setback extension for you.
Right.
I'll vote yes to request zoning.
I had a really hard time on the last one that I came forward with, so.
I will give you less of a hard time on this one. I'll just tell you right now.
This is way over on the side of the property. I feel like right now the view is off, you know, taking advantage of the view to the backyard, leaving all that glass open to the view of the backyard, and adding on to the front is a good solution for the way that this house is positioned on the site and the fact of preserving the oak tree. I feel like we've done it. You asked us to do homework, and
yeah, and you did. And I'm telling you, I understand that going the setbacks and we fight on those. I think in this case, I'd be more than willing persuaded. I'm just telling you that that's my thought on it. Also, if that is the back, right, that would be or I guess Goodman House, it's really hard to place the backyard.
We go to the plat. It is coming back the other one more and a couple more. It is.
That's a more private space where you got the living room back there to look at your oak from that living room. Look, we're not here for a vote. I'm just telling you, those are the ideas I'm thinking in my mind. If you can find a way to work it that way, I would be much happier. I would totally advocate for a setback adjustment. But I'm one voice here.
Could you enlarge that plan view? Shift over. How much would you be going in there if you did put it there? Because right now, it looks like it
would probably be up to the 50.
Could you put the addition right where the patio is?
It overlaps the kitchen. It's in a very odd space for flow.
They invited me over to sit down, and
whoever invites me up.
There's a reason.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay, Chair. Take up
this house has the iconic windows on both sides at the end of the house.
Yes.
To the street. This lot also is a narrow lot. It's a very deep lot. And if there's any lot that calls out for an accessory dwelling unit, this might be the one. And you can build it beyond the canopy of the oak tree and meet, I think, all of your needs and have an escape place for your children and your parent. Anyway, but we're stuck with this. The house is there. The side yard setbacks are there. One thing you didn't mention, and I'll bring up, we talked about when I was visiting with you, is the topography of the site. Is that on the left side of the plat, it began to slope down. The house next door to you is probably a full story lower than yours. I'm not sure if it's that's
probably 8 feet.
Yeah, okay, well, that's almost the story. And so your foundation right, goes out and the ground slopes down. So your foundation is going to get more and more up out of the ground. And so it's going to become a pretty prominent feature as you come out, however many feet it was. It's that end of the addition, it's more than 12 feet. Is it 15 or what is it?
Actually, can you fill that up? Yeah.
I think if we go to the, can we go to the first floor plan?
Yeah.
Cycle through a couple of slides. Keep going. And one more. It's 15.
Yeah.
This is 12, that's 15.
Yeah.
You go to the next slide, Daniel. Another one. One more. Get to the front elevation. It does,
Yeah.
the site does, it actually just slopes down a little bit more here than what I've shown, but it does,
I-
it will slope to
I
expose a little
think
bit more of that foundation.
more of it exposed than what that rendering shows. And that's a concern. And I mentioned to you at that time that you're going to be looking out of that new space that you created through these glorious new windows, right, on the roof of your neighbor and their carport. And so it's like, that's not the best view in the world. But I have to acknowledge that you do have constraints on this site that are unique to this site because of the placement of the house, the location of that tree, which is quite a magnificent specimen. And yeah, it's a conundrum. There's no easy way out. I suggested to you other ways of kind of softening this end of it. I had suggested for the bedroom, a low slope gable,
Yes.
to try and break it up some so you just don't have this long things, sticking out all in a single slope.
I did look at that. I just couldn't, it didn't really meld with the way that.
It was a suggestion.
Okay.
But the fact that, thank you for considering it. But that was, the idea there was to try and, figure out how we might reduce the apparent bulk of this thing as the ground slips away from it. We had a house 2 items ago, I think it was, the one on Beechwood Road, where it was, stuff that's coming in and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And I'm concerned that would be the case here. But if this is the best place to put the addition, I can understand your arguments. I'm sympathetic to them. But it makes me wince a bit to say perhaps the character defining feature of the entire property is the one you want to take away. Now, granted, you're going to recreate it further out and such, but it will forever change the home.
Any other comments, suggestions? Oh.
As the non-architectural historian, there are 2-story Goodman houses in this neighborhood. Now, some of them were constructed as 2-story. Some of them, an additional story has been added on to. Is it just in terms of what's less palatable? Is there an option where there's a 2nd story added on here? I know cost-wise that may be asking a lot. I just don't know if that was ever considered or if that's even something that in general this board has.
You mean going up from the first floor or down?
Up.
Up. I suppose it's possible, but we would need to add stairs and such. And as you get closer to the property line at the left corner of the house there, that we're suddenly 2 stories tall, even.
And that's, you did talk about the how I don't want it to become dominating, especially if it's already so much higher than the neighbors.
You also run into the challenges, I think, with,
Foundation.
citing that foundation tree, it produces a lot more.
And Jen and Tyler, we'd like to stay with the 1-story addition.
That's what we did in our house.
For the living space.
Yeah.
Right.
We can age in place.
Yeah, well, and I was gonna say, you mentioned that you have your mother living there as well. So and you have little kids, as I have little kids, stairs are always a challenge. So, I fully agree with John here. It's the ideal location for said addition. But it's professionally from my background experience, that's where I would say, oh, that's the part that I hate losing, similar to I just did with the other one. So, Obviously this board's not monolithic, so that's, I don't know if there are any other.
I might make an observation is we generally will fight to protect the character defining window wall, but I can't find a viable alternative given the constraints that they have laid out for us.
I would suggest when you do come back for action, you are ready to walk through those again, just because we are down a few members.
Missing 3 board members over
Yeah.
here at the first.
Yeah, and I know one in particular, Ms. Hammock, also like me, an architectural historian, is going to have a lot of strong feelings about it too. So walking through those positions, I think, will be helpful when you come back.
I think it'd be good what Mr. Burns said is, maybe step in your neighbor's yard a little bit, take some pictures up towards your house to see how substantial it is. And actually have a site plan that has the grades on it, existing grades at least. You don't have to work out the grading, but if you didn't say that, I'd say, hey, it looks pretty good, but that foundation wall is going to come out of the ground.
Yeah.
But that's something you could do with stakes and ribbons.
Yeah.
Yes, take some.
Just put a stake at the proposed end corner, take a ribbon out.
Yeah, sure. Good idea.
Take some photographs. And, that will show you as well as us, is my argument valid that it will become a looming presence over the neighbor's house.
And then do you have existing photographs of the front of the house? Because I don't see them in this, at least in the presentation
I
package.
do, yes, go back a
package we-
little bit further.
Package we
more.
received, we did not.
Here, yes, there it is. This is the existing front of the house.
Yeah, you can see it just standing where the picture is taken. It's definitely that neighbor is definitely down lower.
But now, is that big brick wall, is that the fireplace or the big?
That's the fireplace wall.
The fire-
No,
the
it's
fire-
closest to the
it's on this side, which will remain exposed.
That'll stay, not,
This is all
not impeded.
remaining
Okay.
as is here.
That's good.
Yes,
But now, so the addition is going to come forward to that, right?
correct, yes. And then I did step the addition in from this brick wall also to leave that defining side elevation unchanged.
It's interesting, Mr. Daniel, I would say that the photograph on the right, it's not an exciting look of the houses that we've seen in the neighborhood before. This is kind of like, I don't think you're losing.
No, I know. I mean, it is very much the art that Mr. Burns and I work in. It's got a lot of subjective fluidness in it about how you can work with things. And then sometimes you're faced with something that you're constrained by the design options. And I agree with Mr. Burns fully. You're constrained here on where you can do things. Doesn't mean I have to like it. I'd be happy about the loss of fabric, so.
It just, a comment has nothing to do with the presentation tonight. This is a carport I can approve. And
Okay.
It's like almost not there. He's just like.
Yeah.
Put solar panels on it.
Oh, okay, let's not bring that back
It's flat.
up. Okay. All right, so it sounds like, I think I'm just making sure, Ms. Murray and Ms. Ford, I don't think any comments from two of you. I don't see hands up. So we would see you probably back in September, I would imagine then.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming out and thank you for staying for as long as you had to as well. All right. That takes us out of workshop and into presentations. We have an update on the judicial complex redevelopment, and this is going to be presented to us by Ms. Kimberly Callahan, with Department of Public Works and Environmental Services. Oh, there she is.
Hello, good evening.
Yep, we can hear you. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Perfect. All right. Ms. Callahan, the floor is yours.
Okay, let me just share my screen.
I'll let the record show. I think we have Ms. Beecham here as well.
Is everybody seeing the presentation?
Yes, we are.
Okay, great. Well, good evening. As I mentioned, my name is Kimberly Callahan. I'm a project coordinator in Capital Facilities. I work with Joan Beecham in the Public-Private Partnerships branch. And tonight I'm here to give you an update on the redevelopment of the judicial complex. I thought I'd start, since it's been a couple of years since we've been here to present, I thought I would start with a brief background of the master plan process, talk about the comprehensive plan amendment that was recently adopted, and then go through briefly the rezoning applications that are currently in process, and then activities that are happening at the historic courthouse right now. So on the left-hand side is the existing 48-acre site of the judicial complex, and on the right was the final master plan. As you can see, the existing conditions show the Massey building being demolished. So in 2018, the county started a master planning effort for the full 48 acres of the site to really think about, now that the Massey building was gone, how do we more effectively and efficiently use this board-owned property to serve the needs of the community? Because the last master planning effort for this site was back in 2002. So between 2018 and 2021, which it took a long time because COVID happened in between there, we worked on the master planning process. We had a significant amount of stakeholder and public engagement, and we developed this 20+ year plan for the build out of the judicial complex. And once the master plan was completed, our next step towards implementing that master plan was to start the entitlement process. And the first step in that entitlement process, got ahead of myself. The master planning community engagement was very robust, and I've highlighted all the meetings that we had during that master plan process, and highlighted the times where we came to the architectural review board 3 times. So it's been about 3.5 years since we've been to see you guys, but we did get the ARB's feedback and input during the master plan process. And here's the images of the master plan. At the top of the page, we have Main Street. On the right-hand side, we have 123. The corner is the existing historic courthouse. We have the existing juvenile detention center. We're keeping the adult detention center and the existing courthouse or judicial center, as well as we're keeping the existing parking garage. And all the buildings with green tops are the new buildings. And the idea behind the master plan was, one, we have a new main entrance off of 123 that aligns with the city's extension for South Street. So we have a new road that's coming all the way down and connecting to where Page is, and then Judicial. The idea was that South Street is really going to kind of split the site into distinct areas. We have the more secure area, which has the detention centers and the courthouse building, and then the 2 new buildings would have more secure functions and functions that related more specifically to the detention centers and the courthouse. Whereas north of the South Street and this kind of central green would be the more public use buildings, less secure, as they're adjacent to that private development immediately north of the Judicial Center. And then housing was proposed on the Burkholder site because that kind of keeps the housing away from the main judicial functions, as well as it's surrounded by existing residences. And on the right, we have a bird's eye view of kind of hovering over the corner of Chain Bridge and Main Street, looking southwest towards that affordable housing site on the Burkholder building. But this gives you a sense for the new buildings and how they tie into the existing buildings, and then that kind of new grid of street that we're creating with the master plan. So now we get to the comprehensive plan amendment. As I mentioned, the first step towards implementation of this master plan is really a comprehensive plan amendment, because the previous comprehensive plan text only allowed for public safety and judicial uses. And we wanted to expand the uses on the site to include residential and other public facilities that maybe weren't specifically related to public safety. So over the 20 years, the comprehensive plan allows for a maximum of 2 million square feet of public facilities. 1.3 million of that is already existing, so there's a maximum of additional 700,000 square feet. It requires a network of open space and a central green. It also, make sure that it sets importance on the preservation of historic structures such as the historic courthouse, the historic jail, and we propose to relocate the Legato School onto this historic block. It also recommends consideration for study of a future historic overlay district at this corner. And then it allows for up to 300 affordable housing units. And that plan text was adopted by the board on June 11th of 2024. So kind of running concurrently, but also slightly behind the comprehensive plan amendment are the zoning applications. So that's what I'm currently overseeing, is the proper condition amendment and an associated conceptual development plan and a final development plan for the entire site. Now, as I mentioned, this is a 20+ year plan for the site. So the full 48 acres will be redeveloped in several different phases. And with each different phase, we'll be coming back through the zoning process with a CDPA and an FDPA. And you'll notice when I showed the conceptual development plan that we're proposing now, it does not include affordable housing at the moment because there was not enough design information. So Housing and Community Development will come back with their own application for affordable housing. Here's an image of the CDPA. As I mentioned, the Burkholder site is kind of shown in its existing condition, and housing will come back with the design for that. But the CDPA is very basic and conceptual in nature, but you can see that it is closely following the master plan. We have the new South Street coming down to connect into Page Avenue. We also have the 4 new buildings as we showed on the master plan. And then we're preserving this historic corner with the historic courthouse, historic jail, and the relocation of the Legato School. It's currently in this green circle here, kind of right along Chain Bridge Road. So the conceptual development plan sets out our grid of streets. It sets the maximum height and maximum density for the site. It also commits us to specific amount of open space and the location and character of that open space. And it lays out the pedestrian pathways. This brown line that kind of runs along South Street is a separated bike path that runs from Chain Bridge Road all the way to Judicial, as well as numerous pedestrian paths throughout the site to help people navigate from the parking garage to building to get to where they need to be. And then we have this main promenade, which was an important feature in the master plan that gives a view from Main Street all the way down to the entrance to the existing courthouse. So that's a 15-foot wide brick pathway framed by trees on either side that will be kind of a prominent north-south pathway through the site. And for the open space, it is very conceptual in nature, but I did want to show an example for the historic block. What we're committing to is providing pedestrian improvements along Chain Bridge and Main Street, creating a park around the existing courthouse, relocating the Legato School to kind of create this historic block. But obviously the design is there's not really much of a design right now. Once we get funding for the capital renewal of the historic courthouse, we'll submit another CDPA and FDPA and have more detailed design for this site once we get additional funding to do that. What we do have funding for currently is Building 1, and that is Building 1 is also called the Judicial Annex. That name was selected by the Chief Judge. And we have funding for design and future construction of this building. So we have more detailed design information. So our final development plan covers the whole site, but it really only contemplates improvements associated with Phase 1. So for Phase 1, we're building the initial segment of South Street. So this is Chain Bridge Road on the right, and we're going to be building a traffic signal here and this first section of South Street. In the full build out of the site, parking garage A would go away and South Street will be extended. But for now, we're only building this Building 1 and South Street. And this is kind of a modified grid around this green space, which is temporary until further development happens. But it'll be two-way around this green space instead of the one-way loop that it is right now. And building one is very important to the kind of kicking off the development of the entire 48 acres, because we have using agencies moving from the Burkholder building into building one, from the police evidence storage is also moving into building one. The Commonwealth's attorney is moving from the existing courthouse into building one, and some users from the historic courthouse are also moving in. So that frees up a lot of space around the site to redevelop the Burkholder site, redevelop where the police evidence storage is, and it also allows expansion in the courthouse from vacated space from the Commonwealth's attorney. So building one is really important to allow, it's the first domino to allow redevelopment of the rest of the site. I just wanted to give you, because we are further along in the design of building one, this first image is an aerial as if you're kind of floating above the historic courthouse, looking towards the existing courthouse entrances here. We're building that section of the promenade. We're also building that extension of West Street with a drop off for the courthouse. And then our new building one is this L-shaped building with a nice plaza in between the existing courthouse and building one. And then on the right is an image as if you're standing at the corner of South Street and West at the promenade, about to cross. You'll see this is the existing courthouse entrance, and to your right is building one. And then just a couple more images of building one. This is the main entrance to building one, and the main entrance is located kind of facing West Street right here, adjacent to the courthouse. And then this is a view of the promenade. Building one would be on your right-hand side. So as you're walking down the promenade, you're looking at the main courthouse entrance with trees and native landscaping on both sides of you. At the bottom left is another similar view, but you can see building one as it relates to the existing courthouse. And then the last image is of this extended West Street with the circular drop-off and handicap parking. For our schedule, the public hearings for our zoning applications will be this fall. And then for the judicial annex, which is also building one, we've already submitted for site plan. We're addressing our first submission comments. Building permit submission will go in this month. Construction is scheduled to start in fall of 2025 and occupancy in 2028. So we're still a ways out, but we're moving forward. Now with the historic courthouse, as you may be aware, there are activities happening currently. We are in the process of demolishing the non-historic wings and Sallyport, as well as repairing the brick and mortar around the entire courthouse. And we're also doing some HVAC repairs or replacements for the historic courthouse. We're currently under construction, and that is scheduled to be completed in February. The second phase of the historic courthouse, as I mentioned, so we have funding for phase one. We are expecting that phase two will be the capital renewal for the historic courthouse. Every funding cycle, we ask for money to start design. We will continue to do so because we want to start design on the park, on the pedestrian improvements, and on the interior improvements for the historic courthouse. And with that, that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions or go back to slides that you'd like to see.
All right. Lots of information for some of us who have been here for the whole ride. We've seen it from here to now. So obviously welcome anybody sharing any input they have. Mr. Plumpy.
Yes. Thank you for the presentation. Very nice and concise. I had the fortunate or unfortunate pleasure of doing jury duty earlier this year, and I had to park in that garage, which is a mile away, and it's the garage that you'll keep, which is at the back end of the site. Was there any consideration for the new construction? And I know you're, phase one, obviously not, but to put parking underneath these buildings so that, to make it more convenient for people to park, because it is very inconvenient. in my opinion. It's at the corner of the site. You're trying to service all those buildings through the one parking garage that will remain.
Certainly, yes, and there will be, so for building one, there is parking underneath this building, but it is only for staff because it's secure. It's actually, we have a connection actually to the courthouse, but for buildings 2 and 3, yes, there will be underground the parking will be underground for, public parking.
Okay, so will that parking garage that is in the upper left-hand corner stay intact as is? Or can it be reduced in size, or can it be removed, and lastly, could it be refaced in something architecturally so it looks better than what it does today?
Well, this parking garage will remain.
Yes, that's what I'm
The
saying.
old parking garage for the staff will be removed. So what we're actually going to do is we're going to need to have change the access.
It's going to need some modifications in the future.
Yes, so that the staff can be separated from the public.
Well, I think what Mr. Plumpy's getting at is, because you've got a lot of great conceptual visualizations of how this space will look, but that parking garage is going to be facing this green space, and it is not the most beautiful creature in the entire world, so.
Right.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. T.
No, that's a good,
Yeah, I guess the the other point, I practice law in Fairfax, so I'm over there all the time. It's an excellent concept, I think, to make it more walkable and everything, and I think that's great. But it does seem like there's more being added, but it doesn't seem like, I think this is what Mr. Plumpy was getting at, that parking's getting any closer to, I guess, what we would call what you referred to as the more secured area of the site, where the, building one, the judicial annex, if that's what we're calling it or whatever, is. And I know this is the part that's already has funding approved, but I guess that's where we are. But I guess my question, and I think I know the answer, but other than the additional parking under building 1 for, it's going to be staff parking, is there any other additional parking, whether it's surface level or parking garage?
Well, do you mean for phase 1 or the
For
build
phase
out?
1, let's start with phase 1.
So let me find the,
Phase
all
one,
right,
that
so
one
for
garage.
phase 1,
Right.
the staff garage will remain.
I used to park there.
The public garage will remain, which I agree, it's a hike, but we also will have on-street parking on South Street and Page Avenue. We'll also have on-street parking on West Street. And then we have some on-street parking on this side of West Street. On the left side of West Street, there is on-street parking, but it is for public law enforcement vehicles. So there'll be a significant amount of on-street parking, and then we're maintaining some of the parking lot adjacent to the historic courthouse does get clipped off when we bring South Street through, but we are for phase 1 maintaining this surface lot.
Okay.
And then the
Burns,
surface lot, on the other side of Page Avenue remains with phase 1.
Gotcha. Yeah. Mr. Burns?
Yeah, one of your earliest slides had a statement about preserving historic buildings or something like that. It was a list.
It was the
There it is.
plan. It was the comp plan.
Preservation of historic structures.
Mhm.
There are some 20th century structures on this site that are probably old enough to be considered historic, but I didn't hear you say anything about them. Yeah, we've already lost the Massey building, so that's a fait accompli. The police administration, now I believe it's a police archive building, is also by the same architect as did the Massey building. And the Burkholder building, the former school, was in some of your slides seems to be remaining, and in other slides it seems to be erased.
Yes, so in the comprehensive
What's going on
plan,
with them? And my question is the county doing a study for their potential, for them to be considered potentially historic? Not suggesting that they have to be saved, but that the county should take some steps to keep a record of its existence on this site as a county government, because that tells some of the history of the county. So
As part of
what's
the
going on
proffers,
with those
we're
buildings?
as part of the proffers for this rezoning application, we're required to do historic documentation of these of the Burkholder building before any demolition would occur. But
And the
the
police
reason it's
administration
shown,
building, I hope.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
And the police administration building, I hope.
Okay, I can certainly do that too. The police evidence storage building.
I think, John, though, you touched on the bigger question, the one that surprised me at the very bottom, which is the one that the comp plan recommendation was also to consider an HOD here. And so normally an HOD consideration is community driven. This is a government site. There isn't a populace to rally to say, make the, judicial complex HOD. So how is that? I mean, and you may not have the answer for this, and maybe Daniel, you don't know either, but it's in the comp plan. So does that mean, well, how is the county prioritizing that consideration, that study?
Yeah, Daniel, I think this came from your office, right? That they wanted to create a historic overlay district.
That's been a recommendation that our branch has made throughout the process, and it made it into the comp plan update, which we're happy with. I think like you're hinting at, unlike other HODs, that would be at the discretion and pleasure of the Board of Supervisors to authorize staff to pursue that study.
They put it in their comp plan, they voted for it. So they should be doing it then, right?
So it'd be sort of like
the reason I say that, John, is if they did that, we'd know about every one of these buildings that need to be considered.
They do.
Yeah. That would be because obviously anytime they take on a building that might be historic, Heritage asks for the pictures and documentation. And that's great that the comp plan says that, but that's all it does is gives a kiss on the head and say goodnight. And then that's the end of the building. But an HOD evaluation would determine, do we have, as you're saying, some modern architecture mixed with the courthouse mixed. It would be fascinating to know.
Mention both buildings in our report because I'm looking at it right now. So it's been
great
commented on by Heritage Resources from the beginning.
So I have some further comments.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
I saw you. Yeah, the other comment I would have is that this is all 2D, all the presentation, and it ignores the fact that there's topography here, particularly with regard to the large parking garage. I mean, it's a pretty steep hill, and if you're there on an icy, snowy day, to get from that parking garage up the hill of the Judicial Center is treacherous. So that's one of the things that you didn't mention, but it is a fact of life in the future plans for this site redevelopment is the change in topography. So that's a concern. And did I hear you say that you're going to move the Legato School?
Yes, that was one from. It's been moved several times, from my understanding, but it's currently in this dark green circle here right in front. And the idea was to move it to the corner of West and South so that it's on this kind of historic block and is a nice feature as you enter the judicial complex, something that could be a nice feature to see as you enter the site.
Okay, then in your slide, I believe it was 12. If you could go to that slide, I think that was the one that showed the new. No, it must be 11. Sorry, back one. There you go. Okay, are those placeholder renderings of what building 1 might look like, or are those actual?
No, that's the design of building 1. We're submitting for building permit this month.
Okay, and was there any instruction to the architects to try and have some relationship with the historic courthouse, since we're right across the plaza from one another? Because I don't see it.
Yeah, I think Joan, and you can chime in on this. If you don't mind, a lot of the focus was on how the judicial annex was relating to the existing courthouse itself. I think the colors and the palette were taken from the historic courthouse brick correct, Joan?
Yes, as well as they studied the rhythm of the fenestration and worked with that on the design of the new building. If you're interested, we can show you some of those studies. But there was, so our architect is SOM, there was considerable study. Both of the historic courthouse as well as the existing judicial center.
It's like two different buildings.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to relate to either the current courthouse or the historic courthouse. That would be my observation. But if you guys are going for permit, you're way down the pike.
Oh, Ms. Mangum wanted to ask
My
something. Then I
question
get
was,
you.
for some reason, I thought when she was presenting the historic overlay district, it was limited to just the boundaries of the historic. So you're saying it needs to be expanded? No. But where are the location of the buildings of concern that need documentation?
They're in later phases of the project, but I was saying from the beginning, we have recommended that they need to be fully documented before they get demolished. So
they will never be part of they need to be documented before or separate from their inclusion in an HOD. Okay,
yes,
thank
so
you.
It's the police annex and storage building and the Burkholder building are not planned to be preserved.
Okay.
We're talking about there's an area in the upper right corner around the historic courthouse. That is what has been recommended as a potential historic overlay district.
Okay.
Which this Legato school building would be moved into that before it becomes an HOD, if it becomes an HOD.
And then I would have some questions, I guess, about what the parameters of, moving an historic building is one of the main ways to diminish integrity to the point where it's not eligible anymore.
Moved at least once in the 70s.
And I'm not opposed to saving it, but I guess just making sure that there's historical accuracy. This is not the original location. There's signage. There's something that makes it clear this is created. And I heard a couple references to the historic block, and I was like, that was not part of the original historic block there. And anyway, so, and I realized those decisions probably were made long before I was a member of the board, but hearing something getting moved is a red flag.
I just want to respond to that real quick because I work over there all the time, and where the Legato school is right now, barely anybody walks by that area. And especially if you're going to the judicial complex, unless you're coming from that south side, maybe you walk by it. But where they're proposing to move it, just about everybody going there is going to see it. Now, I certainly agree, maybe some signage to put context about where it should be, but people would actually see it at least this way.
But it gets the larger question of, even if you made that an HOD, it wouldn't help us in this situation because you're going to have all the design outside of it. If we had this theoretical historic overlay district, everything we're looking at right now, building 1, and any of those buildings would be outside the boundaries of that HOD. So they would never come to the ARB. So this is we have one building that's going to building permit. And so that must mean you have plans, I imagine, architectural drawings and things like that. I think that would have been much better to have those to see, because then we could have, because conceptual drawings and things like renderings are great, but we've learned very hard that those things do not depict reality in many cases. And we had several applicants even acknowledge that their renderings, they did their best, but they're never going to be the best compared to the plan. So I agree with Mr. Burns. Doesn't feel super connected to the existing judicial complex. It's got brick, but it also feels much more open, like just the amount of light going on with it feels like it's trying to make itself invisible. At least that's the idea the architect might be going with. But sorry, Mr. Plumpy, you had.
Yeah, no problem. I just had a real quick question is, if you go back to the plan, where is the potential HOD? Is that the entire site?
No,
it's not. There's no HOD yet at all.
Language talks about a historic core. Yeah.
Is it just by the
that upper right?
Yeah.
There's not a predefined boundary. There's just a recommendation now in the comp plan for an HOD to be established around the.
The board of supervisors would have to then mandate that there be a study conducted to identify that HOD, but that has to be directed by them still.
It's a shame could not be expanded, just go to the existing parking garage that's going to remain, and then the other two buildings to the right of that.
There is no boundary. There's just an area that is.
Okay, yeah, I'm sorry.
Nothing yet.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Okay. Say no.
Done?
Then, I hope my last question, does the county in this, plan amendment have any control over the private development that'll be between the parking garage and Main Street? The reason I'm asking is that it looks like it's a big single block of a building and it's directly across the street from both the historic courthouse and the church.
So are you talking about this block here?
Yep.
Across, yeah, so that is one, obviously it's not our property, and two, it's also within the city of Fairfax. So they have gone through and gotten their special exception through the city of Fairfax. And as part of that, I know the application was reviewed by DPD. So that they have a special exception. So we don't really have anything to, say on their building. We are working with them to build this road. It's called the East-West Connector Road, kind of straddles the property line and jurisdictional boundary line. So we are working on a development agreement to create this, for them to build this road with their building. But as far as the building itself, no, but the supervisor's office did review it, did look at it, did have comments on it, as well as DPD. But it was a city approval.
Okay, thank you for that information.
I mean, some of our board members have talked about the walkability from the parking garage to that complex. I think that may just be a creature. I think one is the upgrades and changes that may have to happen to that, a consideration of refinishing or changing the exterior facade of that structure, because you can pick your angles to render this area and not show it, but it's going to be there. It's a mass that's got to be thought about. And I think improvements to it behoove the county to think about how can we do exterior improvements to make it at least look less obtrusive. It also just doesn't look like there's a lot of thought, like there's this north-south, there's this nice connector area, but I just don't see a great way of showing how someone could take a walk through a more green shaded space to the judicial complex. It looks, I don't know. I'm not seeing the clear walkability from that area. I see lines, but I don't know that there's a lot less trees in those areas. So perhaps there's a way to make that green space more shaded. I'm thinking of hot, long walk, what could be done in that area in the future to make it, at least a pleasant walk as you walk to go to jury duty and decide that you've lost your entire day, but it's a civic duty. So I feel good about it. So
That's right.
can we make the walk a nicer walk?
Well, yeah, but perps walk that same walk.
Well, that should be an enjoyable walk too, but my point is, you go in the park garage, whatever walk you can make that's enjoyable would be.
Absolutely.
I was just making an argument that we should be relieved of jury duty.
Oh,
basis
no,
of
yeah.
our ARB.
I'll never be on a jury.
I also want to ask about, so folks are leaving the historic courthouse to go to this new building, correct? You said there were folks leaving several buildings that would go into this new building.
There's two programs that are moving out of the historic courthouse into the judicial annex.
Okay, so but the long-term plan is obviously once the demolition work we'll have new programming there. What is the idea for the programming in there in the future?
That's really to be determined once we actually get funding to study it. So I know there's been talk of a museum, and Joan, the deputy clerk of court, has reached out to us as well to talk about how to use some of that space. But really, that the programming for that building can't begin until we get authorization to spend money to start that.
I would tell you that this board frequently likes to advocate to support funding for things like that. So if you continue to try to keep us engaged and aware of those things, that can be something that the board can also advocate to the Board of Supervisors on, that we think this is a priority. Because if you're taking folks out of that building for one building, that's less occupants in it. And that in general for historic properties, the less people are in them, the more they degrade. Even though we're spending money right now on demolitions and repairs, you got to have people living in it for it to be utilized. So if there are ways for us to partner with you all in the future to advocate for funding to do those studies or raise the awareness of that, I would also encourage you to keep engaging with Daniel and Denise, because that's one way we can help in that front.
Great, yeah. Like I said, we do keep asking.
I would just like to add that there is some very high level programming going on. That was all part of the master plan effort. So one of the functions that will move to the historic courthouse from the existing courthouse is the marriage counter. So the problem with having the marriage counter in the courthouse now is it's a very active place and lots of people want to take photographs, and it's causing a bit of a security issue. So we'd like to make the marriage counter much more publicly accessible and, you know, take advantage of the historic interiors, perhaps. The other initiative that the courts are interested in is making a judicial learning center there. They have a small judicial learning center within the courthouse where interns and things work, and they would like to expand that program. So we do have some ideas, but as Kim said, the robust programming has not yet started.
Okay. Any other? Or Miss Murray? I don't see any from y'all. All right. Oh,
I
no,
do
go
want to
ahead.
mention, for anybody who might be interested, there's a history of the Legato School lurking somewhere on the History Commission's website. It's an old Fairfax County publication that got updated. If you're interested in knowing more about it and its movements, it's there.
Thank you, Elise. All right. Thank you
I proofread the last draft.
All right, Ms. Callahan, Ms. Beecham, thank you so much for staying up with us. We appreciate it.
Thank you for your feedback.
Good job.
Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you.
All right, board and staff items. Here we go, folks. Final stretch. All right, review and action on approval of the previous month's minutes from June 13th, 2024. I welcome a motion unless there are any edits. Mr. Zellman.
I move the ARB approves the June 13, 2024 meeting minutes and pay the clerk Ryan Johnson.
All right, for a second.
Second.
Second by Ms. Mangum. And all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. All right, administrative items. I don't see that we have any. We good, Daniel, on administrative?
Yes, I have 3 under correspondence.
Okay. Treasurer's report, ending balance as of May 31st, 2024, $12,381.71. All right, there are no administrative discussion, updates, and reports. You said you had 3? Oh,
That was a typo. That says of June 30th. So the next time you meet, that number will be significantly higher because you have gotten your.
Okay, sorry. As of June 30th. Clarification there. All right, and there were no updates, discussion, or updates on reports at this moment. All right, correspondence and announcements.
Yes, the first thing to touch on, there was the Public Church Accessibility Ramp site visit that finally happened. So I went out there with Mr. Burns and Mr. Kalinsky after the June meeting. Everyone walked the site. I think that you got to provide good feedback with the team. There was also the archaeology team there because they are doing archaeology test pits of where the 4 post pillars will go for the base of the ramps because it's a symmetrical ramp that was approved. So based on the feedback from Mr. Kalinsky and Mr. Burns, they are making modifications to the permit plans, and that will be coming through shortly, and we will be able to approve it. And construction should be completed by this fall. So that's exciting. I don't know if Mr. Burns wants to add anything else.
No, it was a little bit. We selected new materials and it decided that we would try and get a good tonal match with the color of this coins and trim, the stone trim, and with the brick. But the way that we would differentiate it from the historic is we've been using modern materials, which would have sharp edges. And so, from a distance, it'll look homogeneous, but we get up closer, you will see that the new materials are sharp edged. And that's the way that we're meeting the compatibility and differentiation test. So that's one of the things we had a discussion about. And I think that they got a quite good match. And we made sure that we were dealing with matching a relatively recently cleaned part of the stone and the brick.
Right.
As opposed to, oh, we matched everything and now we'll clean the brick. And like, uh-oh. So I think that we're going to end up with a fairly good match.
What's the handrail anymore? Because at one point they're talking glass, and is it metal?
It was, well, we were only talking masonry. We weren't
Talking
talking.
the handrail.
Yeah, I know the
It'll
handrail.
be black metal, I think.
Okay, because at one point they were talking about glass. I was like, seriously?
Yeah, no, and because they have metal ink on the other.
Okay, makes sense.
There is at the end of the church, the double door end of the church, there is an existing wrought railing, iron railing.
Cool. That's good.
And they're just going to continue to use that.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
This has been going on for what, 5 years now?
No,
This is,
we've had it on the agenda for quite a lot.
yes, yes.
Thank you, John, you and Steve.
Group, so I get bi-weekly updates on information. So what you get is a watered down update from what they're very good stewards of the property, but Elise, did you have something to add?
This was on this, or this is a separate item?
Separate item.
Do you have any more on POHIC or?
That's all I have on POHIC, but I do have two more things to touch on. So is it new business, Elise, or is it something I talked about?
It's something, no, the NAPC conference.
Okay.
Okay.
You want to do that as new business?
We can do it. It doesn't.
Elise,
all the
floor is yours, Elise.
I would like for the Architecture Review Board to reimburse my expenses to attend the virtual component of the NAPC conference. It'll be $175. Daniel's instructed me that I sign up for it now and get reimbursed later. So I guess you'll have a motion in September.
As a reminder, every member has a $300 allotment
Yes.
for continuing education. So
Okay, so I think then we'll have a motion drawn up for us for September then, right?
yes, to move through as smoothly and efficiently as possible based on past experience. Yes.
Can we approve it right now if we wanted to?
It would be better if I
Need the motion.
hand the motion that has been.
Okay, and the motion, all right, fine. It sounds like though, if this were a workshop for your motion, at least we're all on board with approving it.
Well, given that it's in the budget, I wasn't overly concerned.
Okay, we'll make sure we'll tackle that for September. Yes.
Just so everybody knows, I will put in a similar request for the Association for Preservation Technology meeting in November.
Right. Let that be a reminder to you all. You need to think about where you're spending your money because some of those, John, Kay, and Elise are knowing where to spend it. All right. Other reports or correspondence announcements?
I was approached by Marcia Collins the other day, who works in DPD and is the program manager for the County Design Awards program, that they will be seating the jury, hopefully the end of July or August. It's the 40th anniversary, which is very exciting. But the design award jury is chaired by a member of the ARB. So this is to put everyone on notice. I think that John, Kay, and Joe have all done it in the past. So if any of you are interested or anyone else, I just need a commitment. I will have a date as soon as I have one. There's a lot of moving parts. I think it's probably like an afternoon. John did it last year.
Kay's done it 2 years ago, I think, too.
So if anyone is interested, I will send out an email after this meeting when I have more information.
Well,
That's just to make you aware.
I'll tell you what's involved. Full disclosure.
Yeah.
You spend most of your day there. It's a morning thing, but you're out lunchtime-ish.
Oh, they give you lunch.
Yeah, they give you lunch. But the responsibility of the chair is to put together the jury comments that Marcia Collins then edits to put into the presentation and such. And then when they give the actual awards out, which is months later, you go and you're the banner white for the awards. They have a scripted thing, and Marcia hands you the certificate.
And a bunch of
then you
pictures.
hand it to the person, and then they show something on the screen above your head in the Board of Supervisors room. So that's the extent of it. So you've got the jury, writing of the juror comments or collating of the juror comments and putting them in hopefully lucid and intelligible form, and then going and being a part of this presentation ceremony.
I was gonna say, back in the day, is the ARB member actually did the presentation, verbal presentation at the hearing,
We did,
but not anymore.
yeah, not anymore. No, it's all
Who does
scripted.
sounds like,
The hair office does it.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it sounds to me like someone who is astute in the arts of the law and keeping track of things that are, of, great management level.
And then who does writing in their profession? Yeah.
Just feel like someone with architecture experience would just be so much more qualified.
I talk about them when they die.
There you go.
So I know typically it's fallen on the chair of the ARB, and graciously Kay and John have taken me that responsibility, and Joe, well, sounds like I got a new nomination for chair in the future right there. Okay, so I mentioned last year I should probably be the one to do it, but I don't necessarily, I'm not overjoyed about it because it's not something that's my forte, but
Thanks.
unless someone else is interested, Gabriella might be interested.
I will follow up with the ARB at
Missing
large.
people.
Yes.
There you go.
Just let her know we're competing over it. We've decided, don't make it sound like it's a chore. We're competing over it. It's a
$300.
All right. Okay. So when is that? So you'll let us know sooner when we need to get
Yes,
an
they're
answer.
still deciding on a date.
Okay.
So does it-
The jury is generally in July, so we're talking real soon.
Yeah, she's targeting last week of July, early August.
Yeah.
Oh my,
I
it's not
will,
even,
so terrible, I will be on vacation.
it's
No,
like not
I
even,
don't think I could, with kids screaming in the background.
You can't.
is design focus on. So anyway, okay.
Okay.
And then my last update is about the Black African American Historical Marker Project. And Stephanie can speak to this because this is the project Stephanie's leading in our branch. But a marker for Gunnell's Chapel is planned to be installed at Clemmy John Tree Park in the Langley Fork Historic Overlay District. The installation of these markers does not require a permit. So there is no ARB review or approval. That is FCPA property. So there's a lot of coordination happening with FCPA about where it will be installed. Obviously,
Monitoring during excavation.
yes, plenty of monitoring.
We've already,
Household digger.
we were talking with Liz, so.
What does it look like, the marker?
It's all those roadside markers.
Oh, those big
Yeah.
metal ones?
7-foot pole with the, yeah.
Okay, cool.
So Stephanie did all of the drafting of the text. They all went to a foundry and were forged. This one is here, right?
Yes, they're
Yeah.
all, yeah.
And then they're coming in waves and sitting in storage until they're installed.
Will there eventually be like a map or a document that shows all these markers?
I think the BDHR actually has a database of them, don't they?
So VDHR has a separate marker program. These are county markers, which is even separate from the History Commission's historical marker program. But there is talk of putting these markers on the History Commission's map for historical markers, but that has not been determined yet.
Thank you.
We know where they are, so we. It's not an official map yet because they're still being ordered.
You come to me, I'll tell you where the marker is.
So can you tell us what happened to the suffragette market that used to be across the street from the World March Foundation? It used to be there. They had a little seating area and some plants.
That's in the, actually, isn't that in the Pocono Park? Not Pocono Park, but the Occoquan.
No,
Park.
it was a state marker
Yeah.
that was erected many, many years ago. My mother's feminist friends saying we are women at it. I'm not sure what happened to it.
We can look into it.
If you go to the VDHR website, it shows a picture of it where it used to be.
It's on 123.
It was on 123 on the entrance drive into Fairfax Water.
Before it was widened, 123, before it was widened.
No, it's after it was widened.
I think it's stolen.
An accident.
No, I'm thinking Fairfax Water told somebody, we don't want it here anymore. It's a security risk to have people that we don't know on our property.
Put it in front of
Okay.
We can look into that. But
Just that's on the
It was
side.
a state marker.
Yes, it was.
It predates the Fairfax County markers.
Okay.
So the Gunnell's Chapel marker, I will update you when the location is determined and when we have a date about the installation if anyone wants to attend.
Okay, that's great. Thank you so much, Stephanie, for all the work. on that.
Ceremony is currently slated. We just got a date for September 21st. So, but location's still good.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
Okay.
I only have one other update under old business.
Okay.
The design guidelines public engagement process is ongoing. The window for public comment closes on August 14th. We have had 4 out of 7 information sessions. This past Monday, we just had the one in the heart of Lake Ann Village Center, which was more highly attended than my other sessions, and there was much more discussion. So Supervisor Alcorn actually attended, which I was not expecting. I have not had a supervisor dare to appear at any of them. So it was a very, I think, constructive, passionate conversation. There's a lot of people of differing opinions that live in that.
I would say, and I think Samantha and I were there too, I think you all managed it real well. And actually, I will say, despite the fact that obviously we have some contentious items on table for Lake Ann, those were not the front and center issues. It was actually larger topics about the county overall or design in the county and new modern construction compared to historic construction. There were some heated debates and philosophical discussions happening. We also had several folks that have attended our meetings that were there and were very appreciative. I would say we got mostly positive comments about the guideline situation. Very positive about the fact that we were doing this. We even had another member who lived in, I think it was Heron House, indicated that they had been there for when we had done the cell tower ones, and they appreciated how much the board balanced these issues. So I think as a board, we were seen positively, and yeah, it was I thought it was a good meeting, and Denise and Daniel managed it real well with the spiciness we did have.
So next week we have a break, and then we have a meeting in Great Falls, which was kind of for the Drainsville district and those 3 HODs. Then we have a meeting in Fairfax Station, in the St. Mary's Historic Overlay District. And then I have one more virtual session and I am done with my show on the road. And we will just be taking any feedback that we get and kind of synthesizing and providing edits in addition to the edits that we're making to the consultant before we can bring them back for adoption. So I have gotten comments from Elise on a few things that we missed. So if you look at anything and you see errors or things that you would like to see changed, please just email me and then I can add it to our list and see if we've already thought about it. But hopefully the next time you see them, it will be for adoption later this fall. So it's moving along.
I'll be at Fairfax Station. I'll go to that one as well. I don't know if anyone else is planning on going to any of them.
What day is Fairfax Station?
July 29th at 7 p.m. It's at the VFW post.
I'll be Lincoln Pass Station. Sorry, I have my.
That's all right.
25th, but I live
So
4 miles.
Yeah, I was gonna say I could go.
I'm
I'll be
pretty
in
close.
South Carolina.
Yeah, represent as well.
yeah, that's just been interesting to hear what folks have to say. I think Daniel mentioned one thing that I didn't know you were looking at considering was the newsletter or updates to members of HODs, let them know about when there were going to be applications within their HOD. That was a neat concept. And I think that was something we talked about. The public attendance at these meetings is only usually high when we have contentious things, but then some folks talk about how they never knew about it. So that might be a great solution to it.
Yeah, so we'll be using, the county uses a program called Gov Delivery, which is what all of the newsletters that you sign up for are distributed through. They're called topics. There's a whole terminology, but so we have one officially made for the ARB under the BAC heading. It's just not in use yet, but we will be pushing out the monthly agenda to anyone who is subscribed, all the ways that you can participate and provide public comment or feedback and meeting information, and then after the meeting, there will be an action agenda, which is currently distributed to the Board of Supervisors and to you all when I remember to, about what actions were taken in the meeting. So that's one way that our staff is trying to increase transparency and maybe increase public involvement instead of, like Chris said, just when someone's upset about something. Because the process allows for public comment if it's received via mail or email, and it can be entered into the record. So we're just trying to make the process as interactive and comprehensive as possible. And it would be nice if we hear from some of the civic bodies that they support a project that is coming through instead of asking the audience if.
That was a big thing we brought up, that came up in Lake Ann when was folks talked about the resident association and then the Lake Ann condominium and resident association. And Daniel had to clarify that those civic boards don't have purview over what we do. And so while they can always convey their opinions, it's not, we don't operate based on whether or not they approved or denied something. So it was, I think it was kind of shocking to folks that they could convey those comments in other means and ways. So.
Not unlike Holland Hills.
Yeah. All right. Is that everything?
That's everything I have.
All right. I only have one, just short one, is Daniel's having me pen a letter to DPD to say we need money for technology. Because it will get it on the record and it will potentially have means of helping. I also had dinner with a member of the Planning Commission today and was talking to him about their technology woes and things like that. And he said that's shocking that we don't have that support, and he was happy to be informed on that issue as well. So hopefully the more we draw attention to it, the more maybe we can get the tech support we need, because when I talked to Kelly, right? Yes, when I talked to Kelly, the new DPD director, she seemed shocked by it too. So
PD director.
What kind of stuff you're trying to get technology wise, new
laptops or that's up for us.
I thought we already.
Yeah, so a way
that was not approved in the.
Did not get approved, but if it will only potentially get approved in the future if we keep asking for it.
So, and is this a permanent room now?
It is the room through December, and part of this letter request is we are starting.
Yeah, part of this letter is to highlight that this needs to be.
This is our technology boost right here. That's it. I'm just kidding.
Hey, this is the best we've had.
I was gonna say, this is 5 years.
I'm trying to do everything I can before my term is up, get all my letters written. I'm gonna try to put in the one for at least $1,000 stipend yearly for compensation. He was shocked that we don't get paid. He was shocked to hear that.
We used to get paid $50 a month for a meetings that you attended.
That's before me.
Yeah.
Well, with inflation, that's like,
Have you ever gotten
that's
your
like
mileage-
$500.
Have you ever
a month.
gotten your mileage reimbursed?
Yes. Well, that was what it was for, basically.
I'm sorry, I
What
hoodwinked you
happened?
into a board that's
You
get
sure
compensated.
did, and I was like, 45 minutes one way.
When they had one of the scorched earth budgets, they decided that they were only going to pay people who are, that the state requires be paid, which is why the planning commission still paid, but we aren't anymore. I was making $100 a month going to ARB and History Commission.
And we used to be able to park underneath this building.
Yeah, that was really,
That was before me.
It was great in the snow.
Okay.
Parked in the, I'm just right up on.
Hey, at least you're not in the judicial square.
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to write that letter and hopefully get more support for that tech that Daniel and Denise have done major efforts in already getting arranged. So we can have
I
happen.
will be bringing the draft fiscal year 2026 budget request to you all, hopefully in September for your approval. It'll look very similar to last year's. We are going to continue to ask for the additional support for the recording secretary for if we do have to hold a second monthly meeting, as well as that technology request like Chris mentioned. So if anyone has other things they want to be included, please think about it before we have that discussion, so that we can kind of follow the deadline.
Just one reminder, two reminders. Remember, we're on recess next month, so there is no meeting. And the other one is when you do get the notice from Daniel, if you're going to make it to the meeting, respond. If you can't make it, copy me on your request. I will give you, I'm the one who has to grant all the excuses. So Daniel then just forwards it back over to me. So he sends it and you need to be an absence to be approved or something like that, let me know, because that's, just a heads up if it gets to you. And remember that most of us are now using our new ARB emails, or .ARB, not ARB like Fairfax emails, so that's part of the reason why some of us aren't catching things. I think, John, that was a problem. You have now another email you have to manage, but otherwise, thanks, everybody. Looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Adjourn. Thank you, ladies.
Have a good month.